Chapter 1943. 1943 Slaughter of Gods and Extermination of Sects 2. Soul-returning embryo. Absorb the souls of the dead and revive them. Soul-returning embryo. It was a very short introduction, but its effect was heaven-defying. Revive the dead. Wang Xian took the soul-returning embryo handed over by Ao Jian and crushed it directly. A type of information appeared in his mind. Following the information, Wang Xian's mind moved slightly. The crushed soul-returning embryo was emitting a mysterious power that enveloped Xiao Ran's corpse. Sensing this mysterious power, Wang Xian slowly closed his eyes. Buzz. At the bottom of the sea, thousands of kilometers away, a head was suddenly enveloped by a mysterious energy. Slowly, the head disappeared in an instant. In the office of the Dean of Longmen Academy, Xiao Ran's head appeared out of thin air on his body. The mysterious power of the soul-returning embryo completely enveloped him. Brother. Liu Mengxin covered her mouth slightly when she saw this scene. Her face was filled with excitement. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. Wang Xian did not show any signs of surprise when he saw this scene. However, it would still take a few days for him to completely recover. His palm landed on Xiao Ran's head. Xiao Ran. With a thought, he shouted in his mind, "Master, am I dead? Where is this place?" A confused voice entered his mind. To be exact, you were killed. Do you know the person who killed you? Wang Xian heard his voice and asked directly, "Master, I only saw two figures at that time. They were somewhat familiar. They seemed to be gods. I didn't have the slightest ability to resist them. Master, am I dead now?" Xiao Ran replied. "Describe the figures of the two of them. Rest for a few days and you will wake up in a few days. Don't be anxious." Wang Xian comforted him. "It's Master." Xiao Ran replied and quickly described the figures of the two of them. Wang Xian stood up and waved his hand. Shui Xiaoyuan and Chong Yangxia appeared in the void of the office. "Find out who these two figures are. They should be godly state experts." Wang Xian said to Liu Mengxin, who was beside him. "It's Master." Liu Mengxin nodded immediately and took out her phone to check on the internet. 80% of the gods who ignited the godly fire could find pictures of them on the internet. "Teacher, I found one. That figure is known as the water god. He used to be the second most favored person on the prodigy roll. Now, he has ignited the godly fire. A month ago, he broke through to the godly state. The True Spirit sect was founded by him. As for the other figure, there is no information about him on the internet." "Teacher, did they harm my brother?" Very soon, Liu Mengxin found a piece of information and asked Wang Xian, "Where is the True Spirit sect?" Wang Xian nodded slowly. His eyes were sparkling with a cold glint. "Teacher, the True Spirit sect is now occupying the Divine Mountain, the Yellow Mountain." "The Yellow Mountain?" As Wang Xian spoke, he looked at Ao Jian. "Call Ao Chitian and the rest over. It's the Dragon King." Ao Jian nodded immediately. "True Spirit sect? Water God?" Xiao Ran didn't offend them. Why did the two gods come to assassinate him? Wang Xian frowned slightly. He initially thought that this matter was done by the Lingxiao treasured palace, but he didn't expect it to not be the case. No matter who he is, he will have to pay the price of blood for killing the disciple of my Dragon King. A hint of viciousness flashed across Wang Xian's eyes. "Mengxin, take care of your brother first." He spoke to Liu Mengxin and walked out slowly. Dragon King. At the entrance, all the disciples of the Dragon Gate Academy were guarding outside. When they saw the Dragon King coming out, they shouted respectfully, "Everything will be the same here at the Dragon Gate Academy. I'm here." He spoke indifferently and walked straight out. "It's the Dragon King." When all the disciples of Dragon Gate Academy heard this, they heaved a sigh of relief. If the Dragon King did not care about Dragon Gate Academy, the entire Dragon Gate Academy would be finished. Sensing the murderous aura from the Dragon King, everyone felt a chill in their hearts. After hesitating for a moment, they followed behind the Dragon King and walked out. Buzz. Buzz. "Greetings, Dragon King." When Wang Xian reached the door, figures appeared out of thin air. Ao Jian, Ao Yao, Ao Chitian, Ao Xingmu, Ao Qi, Ao Crab, Mao Zisen, Ba Qi, and Ao Fenghuang. Greetings, Dragon King. The 9 figures shouted respectfully in human form. Behind them, 100 members of the Demon War Department were holding metal clubs that were filled with a violent aura. Around them, all the disciples of the Dragon Gate Academy were paying attention to the situation in the dean's office. When they saw the Dragon King come out, all the students' eyes were filled with awe. However, when the members of the Dragon Palace appeared out of thin air, all of them were slightly shocked and their faces revealed a look of surprise. What are those people and creatures? Are they the Dragon King's men? They should be the subordinates of the Dragon King. Why did the Dragon King call them here? All the students were shocked. Even the disciples of the Dragon Gate Academy looked on in astonishment. Let's go to the yellow sky. Today, we will slaughter the gods and destroy the sect. Wang Xian swept his gaze across the members of the Dragon Palace and said with a cold expression, "It's the Dragon King." As soon as he said that, the members of the Dragon Palace responded in a cold tone. Buzz. Wang Xian's figure moved and flew directly into the sky. The members of the Dragon Palace followed closely behind him and flew in the direction of the Yellow Mountain. Oh my God, what is the Dragon King doing? Slaughtering the gods and exterminating the sect. The Dragon King knows who killed Dean Xiao. Slaughtering the gods and exterminating the sect, this is so domineering. Yellow Mountain seems to be the territory of the True Spirit sect. There's a water god there. It's a powerful force that rarely has a god there. Is it that god from the True Spirit sect who killed Dean Xiao? Our Dragon King will exterminate them? Shocked voices came from the students' mouths one after another. The True Spirit sect, you're finished. The Dragon King will definitely exterminate you. When the insightful void-level disciples of the Dragon Gate Academy saw this scene, they clenched their fists tightly. They had witnessed the terror of the Dragon King and the strength of the members of the Dragon Palace. If Dean Xiao had not banned them from talking about it, the entire world would have been in an uproar. Perhaps my Dragon King is too low-key. Someone actually dared to assassinate my disciple. In the sky, Wang Xian flew towards the Yellow Mountain at a terrifying speed. A sinister look appeared in his eyes. Since that was the case, I will let all of you witness the strength of my Dragon King and the Dragon Palace. Boom. However, when the Dragon King led a group of the Dragon Palace's subordinates and flew toward Huang Tian, the internet was already abuzz. When the students of Dragon Gate Academy saw the Dragon King leading a group of experts to avenge Dean Xiao, they were naturally very excited. They excitedly posted on the internet that the Dragon King had gone to slaughter the gods and destroy the sect to avenge his disciple. When everyone confirmed this news, they were also extremely shocked. The news of Xiao Rant's murder had spread all over the internet an hour ago. Everyone was also waiting for the Dragon King's attitude. They did not expect that the Dragon King had already found the murderer and had already killed him. Chapter 1944. 1944-1944 Slaughter of Gods and Extermination of Sects 3. The water god of the True Spirit sect ignited the divine fire not long ago. His strength should not be a match for the Dragon King. I reckon that the water god is going to be unlucky. I wonder what grudge the water god has with the dean of the Dragon Gate Academy. He actually assassinated him in secret and did not dare to kill him openly. Perhaps he was afraid of the Dragon King's revenge. Now the Dragon King has led his men to fly towards the Yellow Mountain. After all, there will be another big battle. The entire internet was in an uproar. Everyone was paying attention to the Dragon King's revenge for his disciple. At the same time, all the disciples of the True Spirit sect in the Yellow Mountain received the news that the Dragon King was flying towards the Yellow Mountain with his men. The disciples of the True Spirit sect changed their expressions and immediately reported the news to the hierarch. With the current strength of their True Spirit sect, they were no match for the Dragon King. Reporting to Lord Water God, the hierarch of the True Spirit sect came to a hall at the top of the Yellow Mountain with a changed expression and bowed toward the inside. What's the matter? In the hall, Shui Xiaoyuan was playing chess with Chang Yangxia on the chessboard. When he saw the hierarch of the True Spirit sect running over in a hurry, he glanced at him and asked, "Lord Water God is in trouble. The Dragon King is rushing towards our Yellow Mountain with his men. He said that he wants to destroy us." The master of True Spirit cult immediately reported in a panic. "Hey! Dragon King!" Shui Xiaoyuan and Chang Yangxia stopped what they were doing. They looked at each other in surprise. What happened? Shui Xiaoyuan's eyes sparkled as he slightly raised his eyebrows and asked, "Lord Water God, we also heard on the internet that the Dragon King has come to avenge his disciple." The True Spirit cult master immediately replied, "Revenge?" Shui Xiaoyuan pursed his lips and his face was full of surprise. Then, his face slowly turned cold as he looked at Chang Yangxia. "He has come? Hehe, a Dragon King thinks he is invincible?" The corners of Chang Yangxia's mouth curled up slightly, and a cold look appeared in his eyes. "Haha, that's right. A Dragon King who hasn't ignited the divine fire really thinks we're afraid of him. If he dares to come here today, I'll make sure he doesn't come back." Shui Xiaoyuan laughed loudly. The two of them looked at each other, and with a gentle wave of their arms, their figures directly arrived at the highest peak at the entrance of the Yellow Mountain. Following them was a chessboard and 2 futons floating at the entrance of the Yellow Mountain. "With our strength, we are enough to deal with the Dragon King. However, if we want to keep him here, we might need to ask the 2 women to help us. I just don't know if they are willing to help." Chang Yangxia looked at the peak of the mountain in the center and said faintly, "No need. We might not be able to kill him in other places, but this is my territory. With the help of the array, we can kill him." Shui Xiaoyuan said lightly, his face full of confidence. "Oh!" Chang Yangxia raised his eyebrows in surprise. "Haha, that's even better." The two laughed and looked at the chessboard. Shui Xiaoyuan placed the chess pieces lightly. Although the Dragon King knew that they were the ones who had assassinated Xiao Ran, they did not panic at all. It was nothing more than an accident. They just had to solve this accident. Therefore, at the top of the mountain at the entrance of the Yellow Mountain, 2 figures could be seen sitting cross-legged and playing chess, full of indifference. This scene was also seen by all the disciples of the True Spirit sect. When they saw the 2 figures sitting there playing chess, everyone's eyes widened slightly, full of surprise. That blue figure is our Lord Water God. Who is the other figure? Our Lord Water God is sitting on the top of the mountain at the entrance and playing chess with that person. Is he waiting for the arrival of the Dragon King? Hiss, those who can play chess with our Lord Water God must be godly state experts. My God, the 2 lords are actually leisurely waiting for the arrival of the Dragon King. There's another godly state expert, haha, 2 godly state experts. Even if the Dragon King comes, we are not afraid at all. That Dragon King actually said that he would slaughter the gods and exterminate the sect. I want to see how he will exterminate us without lighting the divine fire. Haha, I'm afraid that the Dragon King will become a joke. The excited voices came from all the disciples of the True Spirit sect. They looked at the 2 indifferent figures at the mountain peak at the entrance of the Yellow Mountain, and their faces were filled with awe. This was their Lord God. So what if the Dragon King came? It was just that one of them hadn't even ignited the divine fire. What was there to be afraid of? Around the Yellow Mountain, some people who saw this scene were also shocked and filled with surprise. The reaction of the Yellow Mountain was immediately posted on the internet. When everyone saw the picture of the 2 gods sitting cross-legged on the top of the mountain playing chess, their eyes widened slightly. How can there be 2 gods in Huangshan? Who is the other god? 2 gods. If there are 2 gods, then the Dragon King might not be their match. Playing chess. I really didn't expect the 2 gods in Huangshan to be so indifferent. They totally don't put the Dragon King in their eyes. When everyone saw the picture on the internet, they were all in an uproar. Besides them, there was only 1 water god on the Yellow Mountain and they were no match for the Dragon King. However, they did not expect that there were 2 gods on the Yellow Mountain. Moreover, these 2 gods were sitting on the top of the mountain and playing chess. It was obvious that they did not think much of the Dragon King. At the same time, this was also the strong confidence of the 2 gods on the Yellow Mountain. This showed that they were not afraid of the Dragon King. The next battle will probably be a big one. It's not certain who will win or lose. Everyone was paying attention to the news on the internet. Unfortunately, this time, they could only wait for the latest news on the internet. There was no live broadcast. This time, I can take a good look at the Dragon King's strength and see how strong the true dragon son of heaven is. After some gods received this news, their figures moved and flew towards the Yellow Mountain, preparing to take a closer look. To be discovered after assassinating a mortal, what an idiot. In the soaring heavens treasured palace, Jin Feng felt a little disdainful after receiving this news. He didn't have much interest in this battle. Boom! Boom! In front of the Yellow Mountain, a group of people with a terrifying murderous aura suddenly flew over. When the group of people arrived, the clouds in the entire sky scattered in all directions. Wang Xian stood in the middle and stared coldly at the spot in front of him. His gaze was locked onto the two figures who were playing chess on the peak of the Yellow Mountain. His eyes revealed a cold glint. The Dragon King is here, the Dragon King is here. I didn't expect him to release such a terrifying killing intent so quickly. Humph, is he disrespecting us? Voices rang out one after another in the Yellow Mountain, and everyone stared at the Dragon King and the others who were hurrying over. They are here. The corners of Shui Xiaoyuan and Chang Yangxia's lips curled up slightly. They stood still. Chapter 1945. 1945 1945 Slaughter of Gods and Extermination of Sects 4. The wind in the entire Yellow Mountain seemed to be fixed. A solemn atmosphere filled a radius of dozens of kilometers. Everyone around the Yellow Mountain stared at the Dragon King and the others in the sky, their eyes shining. Pa. On the mountain peak at the entrance of the Yellow Mountain, the crisp sound of chess pieces being played was unusually clear at this time. The water god and the other gods of the Yellow Mountain are so calm. Even when the Dragon King came, their expressions didn't change at all. They are so confident. It seems that they don't put the Dragon King in their eyes. Around the Yellow Mountain, some people saw this scene and looked at the two gods playing chess, filled with admiration and respect. This was the appearance of a strong person. When others fought, they still played chess. My disciple, Xiao Ran, should not have any enmity with you. Why did you kill him? Wang Xian stared at them. His eyes were sparkling. He swept his gaze across the surroundings and asked faintly, "We will play this game later." When Chang Yangxia heard Wang Xian's words, he looked at Shui Xiaoyuan with a smile. "Well, wait for a while." Shui Xiaoyuan stood up slowly with a confident look on his face. He looked at Wang Xian and raised his head slightly. "So what if I kill him? What's the point of why?" His indifferent voice reverberated throughout the entire Yellow Mountain. Hiss. Upon hearing his words, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air as shock appeared on their faces. "So what if I kill him?" Haha, our water god is so domineering. If we kill him, we will kill him. When everyone from the True Spirit sect saw the domineering water god, excitement was written all over their faces. He was indeed a god who stood high and mighty. So what if we kill him? Upon hearing their words, Wang Xian muttered to himself. His gaze swept across everything in the Yellow Mountain. "Since that's the case, let's raise this place to the ground," he said faintly. "Haha, raise this place to the ground? Dragon King, you are really arrogant. Do you really think that you can kill us just because you are the son of heaven of the true dragon? I would like to see how a son of heaven of the true dragon who has not ignited the divine fire can raise this place to the ground." As soon as Wang Xian finished his sentence, Chang Yangxia laughed out loud and exuded a terrifying pressure. He attacked Wang Xian and the rest directly. "Today, I will make sure that you, Dragon King, never return." Shui Xiaoyuan's body trembled and a vast ocean appeared around him. The ocean appeared out of thin air and exuded a powerful aura. "Haha, Dragon King, do you know whose territory this is? You dare to step into my territory. I have to say, you are really stupid. Heavenly water formation, rise." As Shui Xiaoyuan spoke, his arm pointed toward the void. 4 gigantic water pillars appeared in 4 directions. Even Wang Xian and the rest were in the center of the water pillars. This water god has already made preparations in advance. He is completely waiting for the arrival of the Dragon King. It seems that this Dragon King is indeed a little arrogant and stupid. He entered Shui Xiaoyuan's territory directly and was trapped by the formation. With Shui Xiaoyuan and another god, along with the formation, a Dragon King who didn't ignite the divine fire is dead for sure. The few gods who were hiding in the void and watching the scene muttered to themselves, "Dragon King, I haven't made a move since I upgraded. Let me kill them." Ao Crab shook his 8 arms and asked Wang Xian for instructions. Okay. Wang Xian nodded his head. Ao Crab, let's each kill one of them. Let's see who will kill them first. The combative Ao Chitian waved his arms and the ocean-pacifying needle appeared in his hand. Roar roar. How dare the two of you touch the disciple of the Dragon King? Die. As Ao Chitian spoke, he let out a furious roar. His body moved and transformed into a 100-meter-long demonic monkey. His entire body emitted a terrifying demonic aura as he attacked Shui Xiaoyuan directly. Catcher, leave both of them to me. Ao Kai shouted in slight dissatisfaction when he saw Ao Chitian charging straight at him. With a light leap, he directly transformed into an earthen yellow crab that was 1,000 meters long. At the very front were 2 incomparably huge pincers. Behind him were 8 legs that were filled with sharp thorns, making them look somewhat sinister. Boom! The ground shook violently as Ao Crab attacked. The moment Ao Chitian and Ao Crab attacked, Shui Xiaoyuan and Chang Yangxia were completely dumbfounded. What was going on? What the hell was going on? Wasn't their opponent the Dragon King? Why did 2 godly state existences rush out from the Dragon King's side? Moreover, from the aura that burst out from him, he was not weaker than them. In fact, he was even stronger than them. The reason why they dared to sit there and play chess leisurely and did not put the Dragon King in their eyes at all was because in their eyes, the Dragon King's arrival was just sending himself to his death. However, what was going on with these 2 godly state experts who had charged straight at them? What was going on? The 2 of them were completely dumbfounded. Their posturing was for the Dragon King, not for the 2 of them. What's going on? Beside the Dragon King, how could it be? The gods watching in the void, the people looking in their direction, and all the disciples of the true spirit sect also opened their mouths slightly. What was going on with the 2 godly state experts who suddenly appeared beside the Dragon King? Take this. At this moment, Ao Chitian's violent voice rang out. The sea-pacifying needle in his hand directly became 10,000 meters long and smashed toward Shui Xiaoyuan and Chang Yangxia. Whoosh! In their confusion, the 2 widened their eyes and hurriedly dodged to the side. Boom! An incomparably loud boom shook the entire Yellow Mountain. The mountain peak at the very front, which was nearly 10,000 meters long, directly collapsed. Rocks shot out in all directions. The other one, your opponent is me. The Dragon King said that he will raise your place to the ground. Crack, crack, crack. Ao Kai made a strange sound when he saw Ao Chitian's attack. He was unwilling to be left behind. Rumble. His body emitted an earthen yellow luster. On the ground, rocks and large chunks of soil rose into the air. It was as if a magnitude 10 earthquake had occurred in the entire Yellow Mountain. Boom! Countless rocks and chunks of soil smashed directly toward Chang Yangxia. Damn it, why did 2 such powerful godly state experts suddenly appear? Chang Yangxia and Shui Xiaoyuan's faces instantly broke out in cold sweat. The calm expression on their faces just now completely disappeared. Until now, they still couldn't understand why the Dragon King would bring 2 such terrifying subordinates. If he knew that the Dragon King had 2 such powerful subordinates, how could he still dare to show off in this chess game? They would have fled far away long ago. Roar, 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 enjoy the fury. Without giving them any time to think, Ao Chitian's entire body was blood red. In the middle of his body, there were streaks of blood-red lightning that flowed and directly attacked Shui Xiaoyuan. Ao Chitian, who had fire, thunder, and darkness attributes, was unexcelled in the fury. Chapter 1946. 1946 was razed to the ground. Heavenly water formation, open. When Shui Xiaoyuan saw Ao Chitian charging at him with that violent force, His expression changed drastically. He gritted his teeth, took out a formation compass, and waved his hand. Boom, boom, boom. The water pillars that were 100 meters in diameter and shot straight into the sky from 4 directions immediately bloomed with terrifying water spray. The 4 water pillars attacked Ao Chitien directly. At the same time, the sea beasts formed from various water elements in the ocean behind him attacked Ao Chitien. The overwhelming attacks completely covered Ao Chitien. Roar. When Ao Chitien saw Shui Xiaoyuan's attack, he raised his head and let out a wild roar. He swept his gaze across the water pillars and swept his long tail across the sky. The tail, which was made up of lightning, darkness, and flames, swept across the water pillars, causing the entire heavenly water array to tremble. Ocean pacifying needle, freeze. He looked at the densely packed sea beasts that covered the entire sky in front of him and waved the ocean pacifying needle in his hand forward. The most powerful ability of the ocean pacifying needle was that it could stabilize the ocean within a few thousand kilometers and calm the waves. It could suppress the water element. A single ocean pacifying needle froze all the sea beasts in the sky. Roar. Ao Chitien roared and a blood-red energy that was a combination of the 3 elements rushed forward. The sea beasts instantly collapsed and dissipated. Mad dragon chains. Crack, crack, crack. Ao Chitien moved his arm, and the sea-pacifying needle in his hand was wrapped with chains. After the blood-red chains wrapped around the sea-pacifying needle, they immediately attacked Shui Xiaoyuan. How can he be so strong? Seeing Ao Chitien's attack, Shui Xiaoyuan's heart beat violently, and his eyes revealed a look of fear. He had used all his strength and the array formation, but it had been easily resisted. One had to know that the array formation he had set up was capable of severely injuring 2 divine fire god. Yet, it had been easily resisted. This. Ka, move the mountain. Boom boom boom. At this moment, a violent sound rang out from the side, causing Shui Xiaoyuan's heart to pound violently. At the side, 2 mountains that were 5,000 to 6,000 meters tall rose from the ground, one on the left and one on the right, and smashed towards Changyangsha. This is a divine mountain that even a demigod couldn't break. Now, it's being lifted up. Changyangsha's expression changed drastically when he saw Ao Crab's violent attack. He held a ring of fire weapon in his hand, and with a wave of his arm, rings of fire smashed towards the 2 mountains. Crack, crack, crack. At this moment, Ao Crab's body was covered in a layer of earthy yellow. Within the earthy yellow, traces of demonic chi circulated. Crack, crack, crack. His 2 claws with pincers and the other 8 claws directly tore toward Changyangsha. Ring of fire, ring of God. Changyangsha directly put the ring of fire weapon in his hand toward Ao Crab. In the air, the ring of fire rapidly expanded and enveloped the Ao Crab. Crack, crack, crack. The Ao Crab let out a strange cry and 2 huge pincers directly pounced on it. At the same time, streams of earthy yellow soil spread toward the ring of fire, extinguishing all the flames on it. Not good. When the yellow soil covered the ring of fire, Changyangsha discovered to his horror that his weapon had lost its sense. Gulp. He gulped, his eyes filled with fear. He was no match for this monster in front of him. Let's run. Our water god and the others are no match for those 2 monsters. It's over, it's over. How is this possible? The Dragon King hasn't made a move yet. The battle between the 4 immortals and gods in Yellow Mountain instantly turned the entire mountain into a mess. When all the disciples of the True Spirit sect saw this scene, their faces turned extremely pale. At the beginning, when they saw Lord Water God and the others leisurely playing chess and waiting for the arrival of the Dragon King, they thought that Lord Water God was completely unafraid of the Dragon King. In fact, the Dragon King might even die in the Yellow Mountain today. But unexpectedly, the Dragon King didn't even make a move. Just 2 of his subordinates had completely suppressed Lord Water God. Many people in the True Spirit sect wanted to cry. Some disciples couldn't help but curse in their hearts, Water God is too pretentious. Fuck, what's going on now? Remembering that they had mocked and cursed the Dragon King on the internet just now, Their expressions were very ugly. The Dragon King actually has two such terrifying underlings. These two underlings of the Dragon King aren't inferior to the other true dragon sons of heaven, right? Hiss. This Dragon King is really strong. The gods and citizens who had been paying attention to this place all this time sucked in a deep breath. They had originally thought that the Dragon King, who hadn't ignited the divine fire, would at most be comparable to those ordinary gods. However, they had never imagined that he actually had two such powerful subordinates. He hadn't even made a move against the two gods of Yellow Mountain. Those two pretentious guys are going to fall. Everyone thought of the scene of the water god playing chess with another god while waiting for the Dragon King. They thought of the water god disdainfully saying that he would kill them. Now. Ladies, save us, save our lives. At this moment, Shui Xiaoyuan, who was swept by the mad dragon chain, instantly spat out a mouthful of blood. A divine kingdom appeared behind him, and he hurriedly ran towards the mountain in the middle of the Yellow Mountain. Save us. Chang Yangxia was also in a sorry state. He had wanted to teleport away, but he had been interrupted. This made him extremely terrified. When he heard Shui Xiaoyuan's voice, he also ran towards the mountain with all his might. That was their last lifeline. If the two women were willing to help them with all their might, they could still kill the Dragon King this time. They had seen the two women kill the god of fire Palace's two wisps of divine fire in an instant. Sister, the two guys outside seem to be in trouble and are asking us for help. At this moment, Huara and Seer were sitting cross-legged on the highest peak in the middle of the Yellow Mountain. The surrounding branches covered them all. When the battle broke out just now, they had already sensed the movement. However, they did not care and were recovering from their injuries. When they faintly heard the two people's desperate cries for help, Huara opened her mouth and asked, "If it's possible, help them escape." Seer hesitated for a moment before saying, "The two of them had brought them here so that they could recover from their injuries. No matter what, this was a small favor. They had to return this favor." Seer waved her arm, and the branches that wrapped them dispersed. Violent and tyrannical sounds and auras came from outside. This caused Huara and Seer to immediately frown. Ka, if you want to escape, go to hell." At this moment, they heard a violent sound and quickly looked over. An incomparably huge earth spike was attacking in their direction. There were traces of magic patterns on the earth spike. Sensing the aura of the magic patterns on it, their expressions changed slightly. Evil. Chapter 1947. 1947 was razed to the ground. Yaoxie. Huara and Seer were very familiar with Yaoxie's aura. Once, they had fallen at the hands of the powerful Yaoxie. Looking at the magic patterns on the earth spike, a cold expression appeared on their faces. "Break for me," Huara shouted softly. The star grass above her head flickered slightly and instantly slashed towards the incomparably terrifying earth spike. Bang! A collision that wasn't very loud caused the entire earth spike to instantly collapse. Shui Xiaoyuan and Chang Yangxia, who were flying towards Huara and Seer, had joyful expressions on their faces. They revealed excited expressions. "Ladies, save us. They want to kill us and destroy our entire Yellow Mountain." Shui Xiaoyuan immediately flew to Huara and Seer's side. When he saw the terrifying power of the stargrass, a hint of surprise flashed through his eyes. Chang Yangxia knew the strength of that crab-like monster. That attack just now was definitely not something he could withstand. The power of that attack was almost comparable to the powerful attack of two divine fire gods. However, it was easily broken by the woman in front of him, causing him to feel delighted. His life could be saved, and even his eyes were shining with shame and anger. "Humph, let's kill him." Huara and Seer looked at the huge crab that continued to fly toward them, their small faces full of killing intent. They had not planned to help Shui Xiaoyuan and Seer fight their opponents at all. However, sensing the demonic aura on Ao Crab, they decided to kill him. "Thank you, ladies. Thank you, ladies. With these two ladies here, we will definitely be able to kill them." Shui Xiaoyuan and Chang Yangxia revealed excited expressions. They even wanted to roar at this moment. Ka, Landslide. Ao Crab stared at the 4 figures on the mountain peak in front of him. His entire body was still filled with violent killing intent. He had just arrived on Earth, so he naturally did not know Huara and Seaya. Moreover, Huara Seaya had already grown up. "Mph, you big crab, are you still arrogant?" Huara looked at the ferocious Ao Crab with an angry expression and waved her arm. In the sky, one by one, thorns seemed to fall from the sky and directly attacked Ao Crab. At the same time, the star grass trembled slightly, and with a flash, it attacked Ao Crab again. The thorns in the sky twined around Ao Crab, and one thorn after another wrapped around his 2 pincers and 8 legs. Buzz. The star grass came in front of Ao Crab again, causing his violent aura to stagnate. He instantly condensed an indestructible earth shield in front of him. Bang! However, the powerful force still caused Ao Crab to fly backward. Roar! Ao Chitian, who had rushed over from behind, roared when he saw this scene. His blood-red Goyu's eyes locked onto the mountain peak in front of him. Although his several 100-meter-tall body was much smaller than Ao Crab's, his aura was even more violent. However, when he raised the sea-pacifying divine needle in his hand high and was about to attack, his hand froze slightly. Goyu's 3 eyes were slightly stunned as he looked at Huara and Seaya in surprise. What's going on? Why are there 2 gods suddenly appearing? Hiss, who are the 2 girls that Shui Xiaoyuan asked for help from? How can they be so strong? That crab-like godly state creature was actually sent flying. This Shui Xiaoyuan actually has 2 such strong godly teammates. No wonder they were so calm and even arrogant in the beginning. Those 2 girls are so terrifying. Now, the Dragon King might be in trouble. Around the Yellow Mountain, all the experts who were paying attention to this side were slightly shocked when they saw the 2 powerful immortal gods that had suddenly appeared. No one had expected the Dragon King to have 2 such terrifying subordinates. But now, no one had expected the Water God to have 2 even more powerful teammates. Ha ha, our Lord Water God has even more powerful godly state friends. The Dragon King is going to be finished. They are going to be finished. 4 gods. Our Lord Water God has 4 gods. The Dragon King only has 3, even including himself. And those 2 goddesses defeated that monster in one move. Ha ha, kill, kill, kill. Seeing this scene, all the disciples of the True Spirit sect were excited. They had been terrified, thinking that their god was going to die. They had not expected that 2 more powerful goddesses would suddenly appear on their side. This made everyone of the True Spirit sect excited. Kill the Dragon King. After surviving the disaster, they also roared with some savagery. The huge change in the scene shocked everyone who was paying attention to this place. The power of the Dragon King's forces had already exceeded everyone's expectations. Now, the power of the Yellow Mountain and Water God was even more shocking. The next battle would definitely be earth-shattering. Little Princess, Ao Chitian pays his respects to the 2 little princesses. Just when everyone thought that the next battle would be even more terrifying, a look of shock appeared in everyone's eyes. In the void at the center of the Yellow Mountain, the extremely violent god-level creature holding a golden rod and blood-red chains was actually kneeling in the void, bowing towards the direction of the highest mountain. "Master," he shouted respectfully. When everyone saw this scene, their mouths were slightly agape as they watched in shock. Oh! Huara, whose delicate little face was filled with anger, and Seaya were also slightly stunned when they saw Ao Chitian suddenly charging over. Of course, they remembered Ao Chitian. Even though they had never seen his battle form, this was his aura. When they saw him kneeling on one knee and calling out to them respectfully, their expressions changed slightly. They quickly scanned their surroundings. However, at this moment, at the edge of the Yellow Mountain, Wang Xian, who had been standing there quietly and did not make a move, was also stunned when he saw the 2 figures who had suddenly appeared. Although the 2 little girls had grown up and were big girls. However, the familiar aura, the identical familiar face, and the stargrass on top of their heads. Wang Xian recognized the 2 little girls in an instant. They were Huara and Seaya. He was slightly stunned and immediately flew toward the center of the Yellow Mountain. The members of the Dragon Palace behind him immediately followed behind. This sudden scene once again left everyone in a state of bewilderment. What was going on? What was going on? Shui Xiaoyuan and Chang Yangxia were also stunned. This. Greetings, little princess. When Wang Xian flew over, Hua and Cai immediately noticed him. There was a hint of surprise and excitement in their eyes. There was a hint of complexity and a hint of strangeness. They pouted slightly and looked at him intently. Wang Xian stopped about 2,000 meters away from them and looked at them with a smile on his face. Ao Jian, Ao Xingmu, and the rest immediately bowed to Hua Cai. The rest of the members of the Dragon Palace also bowed when they saw Ao Jian, Ao Xingmu, and Ao Chitian doing the same. Crack, crack. Greetings, little princess. Ao Crab, who was sent flying, flew over in a daze. However, he quickly followed and shouted. Chapter 1948. 1948 was razed to the ground. What's going on? Shui Xiaoyuan and Chang Yangxia, who were watching the scene, were dumbfounded. The subordinates of the Dragon King were actually kneeling in front of the two goddesses who had appeared out of nowhere and calling her little princess. What? What was going on? Hua saw Ao Chitian, Ao Jian, and the rest of them kneeling and calling out to her respectfully. Their faces turned slightly red as they looked at Wang Xian, who was standing in front of them. Little brother daddy. Hua opened her mouth and called out playfully. Then, she extended her arms towards Wang Xian directly. Little brother daddy? Xia was slightly stunned when she heard her sister's words. She smiled and called out as well. Then, she flew towards Wang Xian. Hey! This! What is little brother daddy? Wang Xian was slightly stunned when he heard them calling him daddy. His face turned slightly black as he extended his arms. At the same time, he heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. What's wrong? Isn't it right? Temph, you said that we were picked up from the ground. Furthermore, we were older than you. Although you raised us up, we are still little brothers. Hua revealed a smug smile when she saw Wang Xian being defeated. She pounced on him directly. That's right, that's right. It's good that both of you are fine. However, I think we should just forget about the word little brother. Wang Xian rubbed her head helplessly as the corner of his mouth twitched. It's our fault for leaving without saying goodbye back then. It made little brother and father worried. Xia held onto Wang Xian's arm and said apologetically. It's fine, it's fine. I didn't expect both of you girls to have grown up. Wang Xian revealed a gratified look as he caressed their heads. The flowers rubbed against him with a look of dependence. Damn, what's going on? The annual prehistoric drama? Those two girls are the Dragon King's daughters? This is simply. When everyone who was paying attention to the situation saw this, they were stunned. The two goddesses that Shui Xiaoyuan and the others had asked for help from, and the two goddesses that had sent the crab flying with one move, were actually the Dragon King's daughters. Who would have thought of this? Who would dare to think of this? Even the writers and novelists did not dare to write this. Everyone stared at this scene with their mouths agape. You. Shui Xiaoyuan and Chang Yangxia were completely dumbfounded. These two goddesses were actually the daughters of the Dragon King. The two of them still wanted to rely on them to kill the Dragon King. Could it be that they wanted the daughter of the Dragon King to kill the Dragon King now? Hua and Xia frowned slightly when they heard the voices of Shui Xiaoyuan and Chang Yangxia behind them. How do you two girls know them? Wang Xian looked at the shocked Shui Xiaoyuan and asked Hua with a slight frown. We are not familiar with them. We don't even know their names. Why did our little brother, daddy, bring people to kill them? Hua looked at Shui Xiaoyuan and Chang Yangxia and raised her head to look at Wang Xian. They killed Xiao Ran. Wang Xian stared at them coldly and said. What? They actually killed Xiao Ran? Xia was stunned for a moment. An angry expression appeared on her face. Xiao Ran was her father's disciple, so they naturally knew about it. However, they did not expect that they would actually be killed by these two people. I told you that these two are not good people. Temph, kill them and avenge Xiao Ran. Hua's face was full of anger as she spoke, and the star grass above her head bloomed with a cold luster. No, 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 how could this be, how could this be? When Shui Shaoyuan and Chang Yangxia heard Huarus' words, their faces were completely flustered. The last life-saving straw turned out to be the Dragon King's daughter. And they had killed the Dragon King's disciple. Now that the last straw was known, they wanted to kill them. Their faces were full of fear. Destroy them. Ao Chitian roared and said to Ao Crab. Kaka, eat them. Ao Crab stared at the divine kingdom behind them with dark eyes. Humph, scoundrel. Hura also looked at them. The star grass above their heads flashed slightly and directly attacked them. No, no, don't kill us. Seeing this scene, the two people showed despair on their faces. They roared and fled into the distance. In just an instant, 2 star grass landed on their bodies, causing them to vomit blood violently. A metal rod that was entangled by chains and a huge pincer landed directly on their bodies. Wang Xian waved his arm. Before they could react, he used the soul-absorbing power, rumble. The heavens and earth cried out in grief. The gods had fallen. Moreover, this time, 2 gods had fallen. The Dragon King's anger will not be appeased so easily. Earth-shaking. Ao Crab's dark pupils stared downwards. 2 pincers and 8 claws unfurled. A terrifying earth attribute energy condensed on his body. Rumble. Below him, a radius of 50 kilometers covered the entire Yellow Mountain. Violent tremors began. The earth began to rise and fall. No, no, I can't fly. I can't fly. Save me. Don't kill us. Don't kill us. Below the Yellow Mountain, the people of the True Spirit cult had shocked expressions on their faces as they begged for mercy and fear. Just a moment ago, they had been roaring with excitement to kill the Dragon King, but at this moment, they only hoped to spare their life. Boom. 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 Mountain peaks began to collapse one after another, collapsing into the surroundings. The gods had fallen, the divine mountains had collapsed, and the sects had been destroyed. The tremors only lasted for a few dozen seconds before the area below was completely razed to the ground. The Yellow Mountain, one of the divine mountains, had completely disappeared after that. Let's go. Wang Xian put away the fire and water elemental divine kingdoms. He looked at Hua and Cai before he waved his arm and teleported away. The rest of the members of the Dragon Palace followed closely behind and teleported away. What was left behind was a piece of land that had been razed to the ground. The mournful cries of heaven and earth reverberated in the entire sky. Everyone who was watching the scene gasped in unison. 2 gods had fallen just like that. They had completely perished. This time, they didn't even have the chance to resurrect. Looking at the ground that had been completely flattened, some of the experts' eyes shone. At this moment, everyone truly recognized the Dragon King's experts. Especially when they knew that the 2 goddesses were the Dragon King's daughters. They knew that another extremely powerful force had risen. A force owned by an earthling. Even if the Dragon King hadn't ignited the divine fire yet, his 2 extremely powerful divine realm subordinates and his 2 daughters had the strength of a divine realm expert. Together, they had the terrifying strength of 5 divine realm experts. This strength was comparable to the pyramid of one of the 4 great forces. After today, the 4 great forces would become the 5 great forces, a force that belonged to the Dragon King. Chapter 1949. 1949. The world of 1949 was shaken. The 5th major power was born, the power of the Dragon King. The 2 most pretentious and miserable gods were born. When they learned that the Dragon King was coming to destroy them, they were pretentious and played chess, waiting for the arrival of the Dragon King. In the end, the 2 underlings of the Dragon King beat them into a daze and then asked the 2 goddesses for help. In the end, a huge mistake was made. The 2 goddesses were actually the daughter of the Dragon King. In the end, the daughter of the Dragon King joined forces with her underlings and directly destroyed the Yellow Mountain and Water God and the others. 2 gods fell and were killed by the Dragon King's subordinates. They were the 2 gods who knew how to show off the most and suffered the most. The entire divine mountain, Yellow Mountain, was razed to the ground by the Dragon King's subordinates. The 5th great power was born. The Dragon King is so terrifying. as expected of the Dragon King of our Earth. His mighty and domineering. The former Dragon King has returned. When the news about Yellow Mountain was spread on the internet, the entire world was in an uproar. The Dragon King had 2 god-level subordinates and 2 god-level daughters. This was simply heaven-defying. Among the major forces that had descended, the pyramid's strength was only SOSO. No one had expected the Dragon King to have such power. And no one had expected the Yellow Mountain and Water God and the others to be so pretentious and miserable. The Water God must have been killed by the Dragon King. The Yaman god of the pyramid was also killed by the Dragon King. Now, 2 more gods have been killed by the Dragon King. The Dragon King has killed a total of 4 gods. How terrifying. The Dragon King is from Earth. When everyone wanted to ignite the godly fire, the Dragon King had already killed 4 gods. He has a terrifying power. I'm afraid that even the Lingxiao treasured palace wouldn't dare to rashly provoke the Dragon King. After all, there are 5 gods. With the death of 2 gods, very quickly, some people thought of the gods that had died under the Dragon King's hands. Countless people were discussing in shock. Especially the Earthlings now. When they saw how strong the Dragon King was, they were also inexplicably proud. This was an expert that belonged to their planet. He was no weaker than the gods that had descended. 5 gods. That Dragon King really hid himself well. 5. At this moment, in the Hall of Gods of the Lingxiao treasured palace, a middle-aged man was looking at the information with a face full of surprise. I also didn't expect that 5 godly state experts. According to the battle at Huangshan, the Dragon King's subordinates and his 2 daughters would have the combat strength of 2 wisps of divine fire. Jin Feng also frowned slightly as he read the information in his hands, his heart trembling. He didn't pay attention to the battle in Huangshan. It wasn't that he didn't have time, but it was because he didn't put the Dragon King in his eyes. However, the Dragon King suddenly had 4 gods who were comparable to him, causing his heart to tremble slightly. He couldn't believe that a person from Earth could have such power. Shui Xiaoyuan and the others didn't leak anything about us, did they? The middle-aged man asked with a twinkle in his eyes. No, the 2 of them were killed directly. Jin Feng shook his head slowly. That's good. Even such a powerful force was born. It seems that our alliance with the Holy Church has to be accelerated. The middle-aged man murmured and frowned slightly. The appearance of the Dragon King and the power of the Dragon King was a big blow to all the gods and forces. Even their Lingxiao treasured palace had to take it seriously. He suddenly thought of the words his junior sister had said to him, "We can find the Dragon King to join forces." Hehe, although this person is not weak, he is still not worthy. The middle-aged man smiled and shook his head. The Dragon King has 5 godly state experts. In other places, after the godly state experts received this news, their eyes revealed a thoughtful expression. Even the true dragon sons of heaven had slightly solemn expressions as they planned what to do next. The entire world's gods became solemn because of the Dragon King. Xiao Ran is dead. No, no, impossible. This is impossible. In a courtyard of the Lingxiao Palace, Ji Lingfei was sitting under a tree in the courtyard. When she looked at the messages on the internet, her eyes were red as she shook her head. She looked at the messages in disbelief. Her arm was trembling as she quickly picked up her phone. She wanted to confirm that Xiao Ran was not dead. He was not dead. Everything on the internet was fake. She took out her phone and dialed Xiao Ran's number immediately. However, when she realized that her phone was switched off, she became even more flustered. It won't happen, it won't happen. She shook her head. She took out her phone and searched for Liu Mengxin's number in a fluster. Her body trembled as she pressed the call button. In Jiang City, in the office of the Dean of Longmen College, Wang Xian brought Hua Erse here. Its sister Ji Lingfei. All of a sudden, Liu Mengxin's phone rang from the side. She was slightly taken aback. She looked at Wang Xian and picked up the call. Mengxin, tell me, is Xiao Ran still alive? Everything on the internet is fake. The moment the call was picked up, Ji Lingfei's anxious voice was heard. Huh? Liu Mengxin was slightly stunned when she heard Ji Lingfei's anxious voice. Tell him that Xiao Ran is dead. Wang Xian heard the voice on the phone and looked at Liu Mengxian. He transmitted his voice to her. Liu Mengxian was slightly stunned. She raised her head and looked at Wang Xian in astonishment. She nodded her head. My brother is all ready. She took a deep breath and said to Ji Lingfei. However, before she could finish her sentence, the sound of her phone dropping was heard. Soon after, it was a busy tone. Teacher, why didn't you tell Sister Ji Lingfei? She seems to be worried now. Liu Mengxian asked Wang Xian in confusion. The person behind Xiao Ran's death was commanded by the god of the Lingxiao Palace. Wang Xian replied plainly. Before Shui Xiaoyuan and Chang Yangxia died, he had read their memories through soul capture. When he received this news, Wang Xian was not too surprised. Everything was because of Ji Lingfei. What? Liu Mengxian was slightly stunned. Her eyes were wide open in disbelief. The Lingxiao Palace? Little brother Daddy, they dared to kill Xiao Ran. Let's attack them and destroy the entire Lingxiao Palace. Chempate. Hura said with a face full of anger. With our abilities, we aren't strong enough. Let's wait a little longer. There's no rush. This is Xiao Ran's own matter. Let's wait until he wakes up completely before we talk about it. Wang Xian said faintly and glared at her. Also, call him Daddy from now on. Don't call him little brother or Daddy. What kind of address is that? Just don't. Hura stared at Wang Xian fearlessly. Who asked you to give us the name of Wang Hura and Wang Xia? It's so outdated. Chimpate. Wang Xian rubbed her head speechlessly and looked at Liu Mengxian. Don't tell anyone about Xiao Ran's resurrection for the time being. We will go home and you will take care of Xiao Ran. Yes, teacher. Wang Xian waved his arm and teleported to the villa. He had gained a pretty good harvest from killing 2 immortals this time. Chapter 1950. 1950 was a terrifying upgrade. Dragon King, Little Princess. At the top of the villa, when Wang Xian arrived with Hua Caier, the leaders of the Dragon Palace immediately called out respectfully. The Dragon Palace has absorbed the corpses of 2 godly state experts. At least 2 more godly state experts will be added. Ao Jian, call them over later. Wang Xian waved at them and sat at the side. It's the Dragon King. Ao Jian nodded. Oh right, Ao Yarrow and Chitian, which one of you is about to ignite the godly fire? Wang Xian looked at the 2 of them and asked. Dragon King, Ao Yarrow is faster than me. Ao Chitian replied. Yes. Wang Xian nodded slightly. Dragon King, can I devour the Water God Kingdom? After devouring the Divine Kingdom, I can ignite 2 wisps of godly fire. At this moment, Ao Crab, who was standing at the side, suddenly said. Oh, so fast. Wang Xian's eyes revealed a hint of surprise. Yes, Dragon King. My upgrade is different from Ao Yarrow and the rest. I can devour the Divine Kingdoms to upgrade my level. Moreover, the level of the Water God's Divine Kingdom is not bad. After I devour it, I can ignite the 2nd wisp of Divine Fire. My subordinates can also upgrade their level, Ao Crab said with a smile. Brother, father, Uncle Ao Crab is similar to Yaoxie. When I first saw him, I thought he was Yaoxie. Xia heard Ao Crab's words and said with a smile. Yaoxie? You can directly devour the Divine Kingdom of the Water God to upgrade your level. Ao Yarrow, how's the investigation of the ancient lands of darkness going these 2 days? Wang Xian nodded and asked Ao Yarrow. Dragon King, there are many powerful demonic beasts in each of the other 10 ancient lands of darkness. Even I am afraid of the strongest one. However, there are 8 ancient lands of darkness that we can deal with. Ao Yarrow reported. Get ready. Attack those ancient lands of darkness. Ao Crab, devour more divine kingdoms of darkness. Aren't you improving faster? Wang Xian looked at him. Yes, Dragon King. The quality of those dark divine kingdoms and dark nests are very high. If I can devour 7 or 8 of them, or even more than 10 of them, my strength will be able to improve rapidly. I can even reach 4 wisps of divine flames, 5 wisps of divine flames, or even higher. Ao Crab said respectfully. In that case, I will use my clone to attack one ancient land after another with you guys tonight. Wang Xian shot out a powerful glow. If the Dragon Palace was powerful enough, he could directly attack the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and crush Xiao Ran. Yes. The members of the Dragon Palace immediately nodded respectfully. Ah, little daddy, is this your doppelganger? It's exactly the same as you. Hua noticed the doppelganger at the side and walked over with a curious expression. Hee, behave yourself. What do you want to eat? Daddy will get it for you. The doppelganger stroked her head and said with a smile. They are exactly the same. Wow, this is amazing. Hua's eyes lit up as she touched the doppelganger's body. Wang Xian opened it and held his hand. There is no difference between a doppelganger and a real body. A doppelganger can also be considered a real body. Hee. Hua smiled and held Wang Xian's hand as they walked downstairs. It had been a long time since they last saw each other at night. The two little girls had been lingering around Wang Xian all this while. Although the two little girls had grown up a lot, they were still as clingy and playful as when they were young. In the ancient land of darkness, which was the closest to Jiang City, Wang Xian used his clone to lead a group of disciples of the Dragon Palace to fly into an ancient land of darkness. Next, it was time for the members of the Dragon Palace to improve rapidly. Once the ancient lands of darkness were taken down one by one, the strength of the Dragon Palace would undergo an earth-shaking chain. Night slowly descended. The internet was still abuzz with all sorts of topics. There were countless posts regarding the strength and influence of the Dragon King. During this period of Earth's mutation, the Dragon King first killed the god of the pyramids and rose up. After that, the gods ignited the divine fire and lifted up the divine kingdom. The true dragon son of heaven, Long Xiao of the 9 heavens. The brilliance of the Dragon King was completely concealed. Today, everyone once again felt the might of the Dragon King. As the gods were preparing for the next development and countless people were discussing various topics, figures slowly appeared in a dark ancient land. Kill. Wang Xian scanned his surroundings and ordered in a low voice. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The group of leaders of the Dragon Palace were all god-level powerhouses. They followed closely behind and charged into the divine kingdom of darkness. Currently, this avatar of Wang Xian possessed the strength of 3 wisps of divine fire. Ao Xingmu and Ao Crab also possessed the strength of 3 wisps of divine fire. This strength was absolutely terrifying. Even the gods of the Lingxiao Treasured Palace had to tread carefully into the ancient land of darkness. Wang Xian and the rest did not have the slightest scruple. Before this, Ao Yarrow had already investigated the group of ancient land of darkness. Ao Yarrow was currently at the peak of the demigod realm. He could assassinate the gods of 2 wisps of divine fire. With his ability to conceal himself in light and darkness, only the gods of 5 or 6 wisps of divine fire could discover him. At present, even the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Holy Church didn't have as much understanding of the ancient land of darkness as Wang Xian and the rest. This was also the reason why the Lingxiao Treasured Palace didn't attack and destroy the divine kingdom of darkness consecutively. This was because they wanted to understand the strength of a divine kingdom of darkness. They had to send a god-level powerhouse to scout it out. If they encountered 4 or 5 wisps of divine fire, they might not be able to get out. They would have to pay a huge price to investigate every dark ancient land. Boom. Boom. Soon, rumbling sounds could be heard from the dark ancient land. However, due to the fact that they were in the divine kingdom, they did not hear any sounds from the outside world. An hour later, the dark ancient land slowly disappeared. Wang Xian and the rest appeared in the middle. Continue, next. Wang Xian waved his arm and the rest disappeared. Time passed slowly. 5 days passed in the blink of an eye. However, many things happened during these 5 days. Firstly, the sudden disappearance of the 7 ancient lands of darkness caused a huge sensation. When the ancient lands of darkness appeared, it shook the entire world. Countless evil spirits rushed out from within. If it wasn't for the appearance of the divine mountain and the rise of the 9 dragons, the entire human race would have been destroyed. However, the disappearance of the 7 ancient lands of darkness caused a huge commotion. Secondly, within these 5 days, 3 true dragon sons of heaven had joined forces and formed the True Dragon Gathering. The components of the True Dragon Gathering instantly caused the entire world to boil. Everyone had seen how powerful the true dragon sons of heaven were. However, how terrifying would the power of the 3 true dragon sons of heaven be when they formed the True Dragon Gathering? The third shocking news was that the Pyramid faction had been destroyed by a group of demonic gods led by the Son of Heaven. This was far more exciting than the Dragon King destroying 2 gods. Chapter 1951. 1951. Under the terrifying rise of 1951. The wind rose and the clouds surged, the world changed. The gods fell, and the divine kingdom rose high. In just a few days, major events shook everyone. Some gods fell, and some people ignited the divine fire. Even one of the 4 major forces, the pyramid, was destroyed. This made the gods in the Lingxiao treasured palace, the sacred hall, and the fire god palace extremely solemn. Things had exceeded their expectations one by one. You were once a heaven's favorite, so why not ride the wind and ascend to the 9th heaven? The skyscraping hall would descend to earth, and the heavenly court would open wide to recruit disciples. Those who entered the heavenly court would be placed on the God Ascension list, and everyone would be able to become a god. The skyscraping hall would also lose its previous invincible appearance. Back then, when the sacred hall was enveloped, divine light descended, and the light of the God of Light enveloped everyone. The Holy Church had recruited a wide range of disciples. Those who joined the Holy Church would gain eternal life and lose the divine light of the past. With the establishment of the True Dragon Association and the demonic aura of the demonic dragon's Son of Heaven, the Holy Church of the Lingxiao Treasured Palace had completely lost their control over the entire earth. Little brother Daddy, I'm thirsty. I want to drink some water. Everything was extremely harmonious in the villa by the sea in Jiang City. 2 carefree little girls were sitting in front of the computer playing games. Huara shouted at Wang Xian. Huara, you little girl, are you treating Daddy like a nanny? Wang Xian waved his arms speechlessly and threw the drinks that Ao Jian and the rest brought from the supernatural continent in front of the little girl. Hihi, you asked us to call you Daddy. In Daddy's case, we are not even 1 year old yet. We are still a baby. If you can't see a 1-year-old baby, which one of us is not Daddy taking good care of? Huara was making some twisted logic. She squinted her eyes and said happily, a baby as big as you. Wang Xian said speechlessly, anyway, I don't care. If you ask us to call you Daddy, then we are not even a year old. Huara said with a smile. Suddenly, she shouted, I'm dead. Focus on the game. Xia, who was at the side, glanced at her and said unhappily, Dragon King. At this moment, Ao Jian and the rest's voices were heard. They're here. Wang Xian narrowed his eyes slightly and appeared in the sky above the villa. Daddy, don't forget the delicious food that the uncles said they would bring for us. Huara's voice was heard in the room. Dragon King. When everyone saw Wang Xian, they immediately called out respectfully again. Wang Xian's smiling eyes swept across all of them. Ao Jian, Ao Yarrow, Ao Chitian, Ao Qi, Ao Xingmu, Ao Crab, Mao Zesen, Ao Fenghuang, Ba Qi, Mo Sho, Prime Minister Turtle, Ao Saturn, a member of the Saturn Turtle demonic beast clan, and the 12 leaders of the Dragon Palace. All of them had ignited the divine fire. Behind them, there were 9 slender figures with 2 horns on their heads and green dragon robes. They were similar to the 4 Seas Dragon King in Journey to the West. 9 dragons. These 9 dragons possessed the strength of half of their bodies. They had the strength to kill a wisp of divine fire god. This was the entire strength of the Dragon Palace. This was also the resources that Wang Xian and the rest had obtained after destroying the 7 ancient lands of darkness. This was the improvement of the members of the Dragon Palace. It was a complete qualitative change. Out of the 7 ancient lands of darkness, more than 30 godly state demons had died at their hands. Godly demons could not be devoured by Wang Xian, and they did not have any elixirs, herbs, or other resources. This also allowed Wang Xian's strength to remain at the 9th level of the demigod realm. Currently, his strength was not the strongest in the Dragon Palace. The strongest one was Ao Crab. Now, He had ignited 5 wisps of divine fire. What kind of concept was this? After his body size recovered, he had reached the size of 20,000 meters. According to A.O. Crab, if he was given 10 minutes, he would be able to destroy the former Earth. This was the strength of A.O. Crab. His improvement was insane, and it made one's hair stand on end. It only took him 5 days to go from 2 wisps of divine fire to 5 wisps of divine fire. The current A.O. Crab was almost invincible on Earth. Even the soaring heavens palace might not have such a powerful existence. After all, an A.O. Crab with 5 wisps of divine fire could kill a god with 6 wisps of divine fire. Of course, Wang Xian knew that A.O. Crab was not invincible. This was because in a dark ancient land, there were demons that could rival 6 wisps of divine fire. 21 subordinates with the combat strength of the godly state. This was the terrifying strength of the Dragon Palace. Wang Xian swept his gaze across them one by one. A satisfied expression appeared on his face. Hunting is indeed the fastest speed for the Dragon Palace to improve, he thought to himself. Next, it was time to improve his own strength. If he wanted to improve his own strength, he would have to set his sights on the gods. The first place is the soaring heavens palace. Wang Xian squinted his eyes slightly. There was a cold glint in his eyes. Dragon King, I feel that with our current strength, we can totally move the Dragon Palace to Earth. At this moment, Prime Minister Gui suggested to Wang Xian. Wait a little longer. Wait until the level of the Dragon Palace is raised. Wang Xian shook his head slowly. Currently, we are still lacking the wood attribute, lightning attribute, and light attribute. However, we should be able to raise the level of the Dragon Palace very soon. Prime Minister Gui nodded his head slightly. All of you should find a place to rest first and make some preparations. Wang Xian said to them. It's the Dragon King. The members of the Dragon Palace nodded their heads respectfully. With a move of their bodies, they disappeared instantly. It's about time to bury all the gods in the heavens. Wang Xian revealed a smile on his face. Master. At this moment, a voice sounded from outside. You're awake. When Wang Xian heard this voice, a smile appeared on his face as he said faintly. Thank you, Master, for your kindness. Xiao Ran walked in and knelt on the ground respectfully as he spoke to Wang Xian gratefully. This time, if it wasn't for his master, he would have died completely. He was filled with respect and gratitude towards his master for being able to cut off his head and bring him back to life. I've told you some of my dreams. What are you going to do? Wang Xian lifted Xiao Ran up with his arm and asked him. Master, concubine Ling definitely doesn't know about this. She might. Xiao Ran's expression was a little ugly. He clenched his fists tightly and said, I want to cultivate properly first. After I ignite the divine fire, I will step into the Ling Xiao Palace. Take it. Ignite the divine fire as soon as possible. Wang Xian walked over and patted Xiao Ran's shoulder. When the time comes, I will ask Ao Chitian and the rest to accompany you and crush the soaring heavens. Thank you, Master. It's my disciple who is useless. Xiao Ran lowered his head slightly and said with a trembling body, It's not that you are useless. It's because this is not your era. However, I will bring you into this era. Wang Xian said with a smile. Go back. We can talk about it later. Wang Xian waved his hand at him. Xiao Ran bowed and retreated with slightly red eyes. Crushing Ling Xiao was not stepping on Ling Xiao. It was not your era. I can bring you into this era. Huh. Just as Xiao Ran left, Wang Xian was slightly shocked. He looked towards the south. Chapter 1952. 1952 on the tomb of the eternal God. At this moment, all the land on earth had become one. Even the north and south poles were connected to the land. The rest of the land was the ocean. However, at this moment, in the south, where the South Pole used to be. In the South Pole, after the heaven and earth changed, the glacier expanded and the ice layer thickened. Icebergs that were thousands of meters tall shone under the sunlight. Crack, crack, crack. All of a sudden, the gigantic icebergs collapsed slowly. The ice layer that was more than 10 meters thick gradually cracked open. The entire South Pole had completely collapsed. An extremely terrifying energy was transmitted from below. Wang Xian stood at the top of the villa and stared in the direction of the South Pole with a solemn expression. His eyes were filled with shock. This power was too terrifying. It was definitely not the power of a godly state. His body moved and he flew to a height of more than 100,000 meters. The dragon eyes of the 5 elements of yin and yang looked in the direction of the South Pole. The celestial burial of the Divine Lord, the protection of the Divine Kingdom, the eternal cemetery, the worship of all living beings, a memorial. At this moment, an incomparably vast voice seemed to come from ancient times. It reverberated throughout the entire earth. A solemn atmosphere slowly spread throughout the entire earth. At this moment, everyone was slightly shocked, and a sense of solemnity and oppression surged in their hearts. Everyone looked in the direction of the South Pole. God Lord's heaven burial, eternal cemetery. When this voice spread throughout the entire earth, the gods revealed expressions of shock. They all flew towards the sky, and their bodies were filled with excitement as they looked towards the South Pole. The tomb of the God Lord, the eternal God Lord's divine kingdom, the eyes of all the gods revealed an extremely heated expression. Eternal God Lord, this was the tomb of the eternal God Lord. The position of God was eternal, and the eternal God Lord suppressed a region. If a god could roam the universe, then the eternal God Lord could suppress a region of stars, and he was definitely a star realm expert. In the battle hundreds of thousands of years ago, 8 eternal God Lords died. Some of the eternal God Lord's divine kingdoms were completely destroyed, but some of the eternal God Lord's divine kingdoms took his body and turned it into an eternal tomb. The gods who had participated in that battle murmured as they looked at the South Pole. After reaching the eternal God Lord realm, even if he died completely, his divine kingdom still had a bit of consciousness. He put his body into his divine kingdom and turned it into a divine tomb. In the universe, the eternal God Lord's divine tomb was definitely a treasure land that countless people fought over. The resources within the divine tomb were definitely not something that a god could compare to. Let's go, we'll head over immediately. At this moment, all the gods didn't hesitate too much and directly flew towards the South Pole. Facing such a treasure, no god could not be moved. This was a treasure land that could make them go crazy. Even if they knew that there might be great danger in the god tomb, it was still worth their risk. Oh my god, an incomparably vast ancient land has appeared at the South Pole. It is larger than all the ancient lands, almost covering the entire South Pole. What is this situation? Did Earth mutate again? Many gods are flying over there. Could it be that a great opportunity has arrived? Hiss, what kind of existence would be able to produce such a vast voice? That place is definitely a huge treasure ground. At this moment, on the internet, everyone was in an uproar. The South Pole mutating, the vast voice, and the arrival of the gods all indicated that this was a vast ancient land. Moreover, this ancient land might be even more precious than the ancient lands of the past. Master God. The disciples who followed the gods to descend trembled. They had come to earth to pursue the divine path and ignite the divine fire. Now, they could actually meet the tomb of the Master God. As long as they could obtain opportunities in the tomb, they could almost increase 90% of their strength to the God realm. The power of the Master God was not something that the gods could predict. In the universe, every Master of God could easily control more than a dozen planets. There were more than 100, or even a few hundred godly state subordinates, or even more. Little brother daddy. Just when Wang Xian was looking at the South Pole in astonishment, a voice was suddenly heard. Hua Cia. Wang Xian looked at them and rubbed their heads. What an ugly name. Hua pouted unhappily when she heard his name. She also looked in the direction of the South Pole. That should be the tomb of the god of wings of light. I didn't expect it to appear. Cia looked at the South Pole and muttered. God of wings of light. An existence on the level of the eternal God. Wang Xian looked at the two girls and asked. Yes, the god of light wings is the god of light wings divine tiger clan. Back then, he was the main force to kill Yaoxia. In the end, the god of light wings perished together with a powerful Yaoxia. At that time, The god of light wings seemed to have perished completely. There was no possibility of him reviving. There should be many treasures in his divine kingdom. There should be the existence of the god of light wings divine tiger. Cai nodded her head and looked at Wang Xian. Brother and father, let's go over as well. The treasures there can create at least a dozen godly state experts. Perhaps you can ignite the godly fire there. At least a dozen godly state experts. Wang Xian was filled with interest. Since that's the case, let's go over. Gather the disciples of the Dragon Palace. With a thought, his voice was heard by the experts of the Dragon Palace. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Soon, in less than 5 seconds, figures appeared in front of Wang Xian. Boom, boom, boom. Just as Wang Xian was about to lead them toward the South Pole, a rumbling sound was heard from the North Pole. The celestial burial of the Lord of the Gods, the protection of the divine kingdom, the eternal tomb, the worship of all beings. A memorial service. Following that, another loud voice sounded. This stunned Wang Xian slightly. There's one more. Hua's ear was also slightly shocked. She quickly looked towards the North Pole. 2 tombs of the Lord of the Gods have appeared in succession. This is a great opportunity for the entire Earth. The 2 little girls were also looking in the direction of the North Pole in shock. Wang Xian's eyes also flashed with a hint of surprise. He had a thought and his clone appeared at the side. Let's split up, Wang Xian said to all the members of the Dragon Palace. It's the Dragon King. All the members of the Dragon Palace nodded their heads. Little girls, let's head to the South Pole. Wang Xian looked at Hua and the rest. He brought Ao Yaro, Ao Jian, and Ao Chitian, the 10 members of the Dragon Palace, and flew toward the South Pole. Ao Crab, on the other hand, led the 9 flood dragons and flew toward the North Pole. The appearance of the tomb of the Eternal Lord had completely disrupted some of Wang Xian's plans. However, this might also be a huge opportunity for them. Chapter 1953. 1953. In 1953, beneath the tomb of the Eternal God. The tombs of the 2 great God Lords appeared one after another. Not to mention Wang Xian, even the Ling Xiao treasured palace and the Holy Church were filled with shock. Other than the gods, everyone on earth was also flying towards the tombs of the 2 great God Lords in a frenzy. If one could obtain a great opportunity in the tomb of the Eternal God Lord, he could definitely overtake them. For the people on earth, for the disciples who had followed the gods to descend, wanting to surpass the gods who had been resurrected and the gods from the major factions, this might be the only chance they had at the moment. Once they could obtain a great opportunity in the tomb of the Eternal God, they would have the ability to contend with the resurrected gods and the gods from the major factions. He would be able to overtake them in a roundabout way. Such an opportunity made countless people go crazy. At least hundreds of millions of people flew towards the tomb of the Master of God, hoping to obtain an opportunity in there. Wang Xian and the rest were very fast. When they got closer, they saw an incomparably huge divine kingdom of light in front of them. The huge and incomparably vast divine kingdom of light was completely incomparable to the current Dragon Palace. This divine kingdom that was completely enveloped by the divine radiance of light was emitting an extremely dense power of light. In the sky, the light condensed into the images of divine tigers, causing clouds and rain in the sky. It was holy, majestic, and majestic. Everyone who came here could feel a faint pressure. Wang Xian looked at the divine kingdom that occupied an area of at least 5,000 kilometers. His eyes were filled with shock. The interior of the divine kingdom was an incomparably huge paradise. Mountains, rivers, water, and the lair of the divine tigers. There were all sorts of majestic and magnificent things. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, a rumbling sound came from the sky in front of them. Wang Xian and the rest looked over and immediately saw a god trying to enter the divine tomb in the sky. In the end, the divine tigers of light condensed in the sky above the divine kingdom and attacked the god directly. Just one attack from the divine tigers was enough to shock the god. He quickly hid in the distance and didn't dare to enter recklessly. Not everyone can disturb the tomb of the Master of God. These divine tigers condensed from the light attribute are the guardian beasts of the tomb of God. Zi's voice rang out. Wang Xian scanned his surroundings and realized that there were more than 20 figures in the surroundings. Each figure came from the Lingxiao treasured palace, the holy church, and some of the true dragon's sons of heaven who had been resurrected. They were the first to arrive. However, it was obvious that under the current situation, no one had entered the tomb of the Master of God yet. The deities frowned slightly as they scanned their surroundings. Some of them tried but couldn't find any solutions. In the end, the deities arrived at the entrance of the kingdom of God one by one. Among the deities present, they weren't strong enough to resist the residual power of the Eternal Lord. If they wanted to enter, they could only do so from the entrance. Let's go. Wang Xian said to Hua Erse and flew towards the entrance as well. There were 2 sculptures of divine winged tigers made of divine-grade materials at the entire entrance. They were lying on both sides of the entrance. The 2 divine winged tigers exuded a divine aura as though they were alive. Their bodies were about 3,000 meters in size. As they lay there, they exuded a terrifying energy. The entire entrance was 10,000 meters long. They needed to walk up 10,000 steps before they could truly step into the tomb of the Master God. If we enter, will the 2 statues attack? A group of dozens of people stood around. At the Ling Xiao treasured palace, a god frowned slightly as he looked at the entrance. Facing the 2 heart-palpitating statues, they didn't dare to charge in recklessly. I don't know. The pressure brought by the 2 sculptures is too strong. I feel that the might of the god is comparable to 6 to 7 wisps of divine fire. An old man beside him shook his head slowly. His face was also filled with solemnity. The arrival of Wang Xian and the rest caused some people to glance over. Then, they shifted their gaze to the tomb of the Master of God. Dragon King, do you want me to go in and investigate? Wang Xian and the rest stood there as Ao Yaro's voice was heard. Don't take any risks for now. After all, this is the tomb of the eternal Master of God. Wang Xian shook his head slowly. The tombs of the eternal Master of God that appear in the universe are all different. Some of them are filled with killing intent. It is basically a land of death. Those who are weak will most likely die if they enter. However, even those tombs that are not very dangerous are filled with danger. After all, every fallen Master of God does not wish for anyone to disturb his bones. They don't want to be desecrated after they die. Caia said from the side. She looked at the divine tomb and frowned slightly. Let's wait here. There will always be people who can't help it. Wang Xian said faintly. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Not long after, figures flew over quickly. Greetings, gods. The hundreds of figures looked at the gods of the Lingxiao treasured palace and immediately bowed respectfully. The gods of the Lingxiao treasured palace slowly nodded. Around them, some gods raised their eyebrows slightly when they saw the demigods. Their eyes were shining. Let me test it out. At this moment, a god couldn't help but walk forward. With a wave of his arm, a puppet appeared in front of him. The puppet raised its head and looked at the stairs at the entrance. It quickly rushed over. Wang. However, when the puppet stepped on the stairs, a beam of light energy landed on it and wiped it away. Seeing this scene, all the gods around frowned slightly. The surroundings fell silent once more. The tomb of the eternal God is in front of us. My God, it's simply too spectacular. Hiss, a tomb is actually so terrifying. What kind of existence is this? It's simply too powerful. As time slowly passed, more and more people rushed over. What is that? The gods haven't entered yet. If only I could obtain the inheritance of the God Lord here, how great would that be? More and more people gathered around, and very quickly, there were more than 100,000 people. Their arrival made the surroundings livelier. They sized up the divine tombs in front of them and looked at the powerful gods around them as they discussed in low voices. However, at this moment, at the North Pole, Wang Xian's clone led Prime Minister Ao Crab Turtle and the 9 flood dragons to the North Pole. In front of them were numerous gigantic divine mountains. Each divine mountain exuded an incomparably vast divine might. Similar to the South Pole, there were already more than 100,000 people gathered around, but no one had entered the divine mountains. Everyone was looking for a way. The Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall have gone to the South Pole. Coincidentally, we have reserved the divine tombs here at the North Pole. At this moment, an extremely domineering voice suddenly enveloped the surrounding. Chapter 1954. 1954 Chaos in 1954. Who is it? Who is so arrogant to want to take over this divine tomb? In front of the divine tomb of the divine mountain in the North Pole, everyone frowned slightly when they heard this voice. They looked around in astonishment. Wang Xian, Ao He, and the rest were standing beside the entrance. His entire body was enveloped by green energy. He had revealed himself in the South Pole. In the North Pole, he naturally had to conceal himself a little. The current Wang Xian could not guarantee that the Dragon Palace was absolutely invincible. This was especially so after the birth of the tomb of the Eternal Lord. Ao Crab had the appearance of a middle-aged brawny man. He had ignited 5 wisps of divine fire. When he transformed into his human form, he could completely eliminate the 8 arms. He looked no different from a human. Wang Xian also swept his gaze across the surroundings. When he saw the 8 people flying over, he narrowed his eyes slightly. 8 fiery red figures. Their bodies contained a terrifying power of fire. They were like an enormous volcano. When the 8 flew over, everyone felt a wave of heat coming toward them. The throne of the Fire God Palace is the gods of the Fire God Palace. The gods rushed to the South Pole as soon as the tomb appeared. I didn't expect that the throne of the Fire God Palace didn't go to the South Pole. The hundreds of thousands of people around were shocked and looked at the gods flying toward the Fire God Palace. All of you, stand down. 8 figures were floating in the sky. They looked at the tomb of the Eternal God Lord in front of them, and their eyes were burning with fervor. Standing in the center, Flintstone swept his gaze over the hundreds of thousands of people below him. His terrifying aura trembled, and a fire palace appeared behind him. Hualala. Figures stepped out of the Divine Kingdom Palace. They held fire weapons in their hands, and their bodies were exuding violent power. Very quickly, tens of thousands of Fire God Palace's disciples floated in the sky. What? What are they doing? Are they clearing the area? Not good. The Fire God Palace's throne wants to completely occupy this place and not allow anyone else to enter. When everyone saw the Fire God Palace's throne move, their expressions instantly turned ugly. They looked at it in horror, courting death. A god from the Fire God Palace saw that everyone below was unmoved. He waved his arm. Boom. A terrifying flame directly covered the area below. No, run, run. When everyone saw that the gods from the Fire God Palace were truly attacking, their faces filled with shock. They hurriedly fled into the distance. However, it was impossible for them to dodge the attack of a god with their strength. Everyone who was in front of the god's tomb was instantly covered in flames. Ah! Screams of pain rang out instantly. Tens of thousands of people were buried in the sea of flames. Those who were far away saw this scene and fled into the distance in fear. Wang Xian and the rest stood at the bottom. Their bodies were shrouded in light and the flames that landed on them automatically disappeared. He looked at everyone in the throne room of the God of Fire with a cold look in his eyes. Hehe, the people in the throne room of the God of Fire are really overbearing. At this moment, a cold voice came from the left. The 8 gods in the throne room of the God of Fire raised their eyebrows slightly and looked over. 3 figures in dragon robes, flew over. Their faces were filled with indifference as they stared at the people in the Fire God Palace. True dragon gathering. The 8 gods in the Fire God Palace immediately frowned when they saw the 3 of them. Suishan stared at the 3 of them with some seriousness. The Eternal God Lord's divine tomb. The 3 youths dressed in dragon robes turned their heads and ignored the people in the Fire God Palace. With their abilities, they were not afraid of the throne of the God of Fire. Suddenly, when the young man saw the sea of fire below, he was slightly surprised to see Wang Xian and the rest standing there. There are people there. The 8 gods in the throne of the God of Fire also noticed Wang Xian and the rest in the sea of fire and frowned again. People from the throne of the God of Fire, you better get out of here. Wang Xian swept his gaze across the 8 gods in the throne of the God of Fire and said faintly. Let us get out. The 8 gods in the throne of the god of fire narrowed their eyes slightly and sized up Wang Xian and the rest. If you don't get out, you'll die. He looked at them with a hint of killing intent in his eyes. He waved his arm and an incomparably huge earth mountain instantly appeared in the sky. The earth mountain covered an area of 50 kilometers and was 5 to 6 kilometers tall. The incomparably huge earth mountain directly pressed down on everyone in the fire god palace. What? At this moment, the expressions of everyone in the fire god palace changed dramatically. The pupils of the 8 gods contracted slightly as they felt the terrifying pressure coming from the earth mountain. Their expressions changed drastically. This is. The fire god palace has met an expert. Who are they? Why are they so terrifying? The expressions of the 3 youths from the sacred true dragon gathering also changed. Even when they were facing the 8 gods from the fire god palace, they didn't change like this. Hiss, there's a mysterious expert in front of the god tomb. With a wave of his hand, he can destroy the heavens and earth. How terrifying. Everyone in the distance saw this sudden scene and their faces were filled with fear. The sudden arrival of the fire god palace's throne and its overbearing attack wanted to occupy this place. However, the 3 true dragon emperor of the sacred true dragon gathering had arrived and a terrifying mysterious force had appeared. Someone has entered the divine tomb, someone has entered. Just as the terrifying earth mountain was heading towards everyone in the fire god palace, a shocked voice rang out all of a sudden. Everyone looked towards the entrance of the divine tomb. Wang Xian and the rest also looked over. They saw that at the entrance of the divine mountain, the mountain gate that was originally formed from 2 gigantic divine peaks was slowly revealing a crack. The 2 figures ran as fast as they could. Oh! It's so easy to enter the divine tomb here. A hint of surprise flashed across Wang Xian's eyes. Boom! Oh no, escape. However, at this very moment, a godly state expert from the palace of the god of fire raised his arm to defend against the earth mountain. His arm was instantly shattered. He shouted with a face full of horror. Quick, take out the fire god mountain. Sui Shenhua shouted at an old man as he sensed the earth mountain coming from above. Roar! Roar! The old man roared, and a godly weapon that was emitting flames flew toward the earth mountain to block it. The gods of the fire god palace hurriedly fled into the distance. At this moment, they didn't care about the godly tomb. Hey! What a powerful divine artifact. However, do you think you can escape with just your strength? He looked at them and prepared to give chase. Wait, the mountain gate of the divine tomb is closing. Let's go in first. As for them, we can kill them at any time. At this moment, Wang Xian looked at the mountain gate of the divine tomb and said to he immediately, Yes. You bunch of ants. If I meet you again, I will definitely kill you all. Crab swept his eyes over the people in the palace of the fire god, roared in disdain, and flew into the divine tomb. Chapter 1955. 1955. You guys go and scout the way. Otherwise, you will die. Let's go in. In the tomb of the gods in the North Pole, Wang Xian and the rest flew straight in. Hiss. In the surrounding area, everyone was shocked when they saw this scene. That mysterious middle-aged man was able to make the 8 gods in the palace of the god of fire fight back with their full strength with one move. Furthermore, one of the gods was severely injured. This shocked everyone. How could there be such a terrifying existence on Earth? This was the fire god palace, and there were 8 gods. What powerful strength! The 3 true dragon sons of heaven from the sacred true dragon gathering also had solemn expressions on their faces. They looked at each other, filled with shock. Enter. One of the youths looked at the mountain gate of the god tomb and gritted his teeth as he spoke. Let's go. The other 2 hesitated for a second and flew over quickly. Let's go in too. Let's go in too. Quick, quick. The entrance of the divine tomb is about to close. If we can obtain an opportunity, we can also become gods. When they saw Wang Xian and the true dragon union entering, everyone around them rushed in frantically. The desire to become gods was enough to make them throw away their lives. In an instant, tens of thousands of people in the surroundings rushed in. Only a few people who had just arrived looked at their surroundings in astonishment. They looked at the gods and powerhouses in the palace of the god of fire in the sky. They were puzzled. How could it be? With such terrifying strength, he has ignited at least 5 wisps of divine fire. How could there be such a powerful existence on earth? In the sky, the god whose arms had been instantly shattered slowly recovered. His face was filled with terror as he roared in a low voice. The expressions of the surrounding 7 gods of the sacred flame changed drastically. They were incomparably embarrassed. "Let's go to the South Pole," the old man in the middle said with a gloomy face. The other gods nodded in embarrassment. They had originally thought that they could occupy the North Pole divine tomb, but they had never expected such a terrifying existence to suddenly appear. After hearing the other party's warning, how would they dare to enter? If they were to be met by that group of people again, they didn't dare to guarantee that the other party would completely annihilate them. They didn't dare to take such a risk. The group of gods immediately flew towards the South Pole with an unpleasant expression. Their hearts were filled with anger. Oh! The North Pole divine tomb has already entered. Wang Xian, who was at the South Pole, had a clear understanding of what had happened at the North Pole divine tomb. When he learned that they had entered, Wang Xian revealed a smile on his face. As long as they entered the divine tomb, Ao Xie and the rest should be able to obtain some decent rewards with their abilities. What's the matter? Hasn't anyone tried entering yet? At this moment, a voice sounded from the front. Wang Xian swept his gaze over and the corner of his mouth curled up slightly. A true dragon's son of heaven looked around and spoke to all the gods faintly. This was because the South Pole's divine tomb was the first to be born. The number of gods who came here was far more than the North Pole's divine tomb. At this moment, hundreds of thousands of people had gathered around and were looking at the divine tomb in front of them. "This true dragon son of heaven, you can go and try." A god from the sacred hall looked at him and said with a smile. "Hehe, there's a light attributed God Lord inside. You should be the first to enter." The true dragon son of heaven looked at the gods from the sacred hall and said indifferently, "Boom." Just as he finished speaking, he waved his arm and a huge dragon claw grabbed towards the people behind him. Not good. Oh no, what is the son of heaven doing? The expressions of those below the divine realm changed drastically when they saw this. Especially those hundreds of people who were covered by the dragon claw, they ran away in shock. However, with their strength, how could they avoid the son of heaven's dragon claw? Let me go, woo-woo, Lord son of heaven, let me go." The hundreds of people who were caught were filled with despair as they cried out for help. "Hehe, go scout the way." The son of heaven smiled faintly as he threw them up the stairs. "Go in, whoever dares to retreat will die." A cold voice sounded from the son of heaven's mouth and entered everyone's ears. Peng peng peng. Hundreds of people fell at the entrance, and when they heard his words, their faces were filled with fear. No, I'm not going in, I'm not going in," a youth shouted out in fear. Peng. However, just as he finished speaking, his body exploded. TSK, since you want to obtain an opportunity, you have to be prepared to die. What? You want us to scout for you ants? The true dragon son of heaven coldly said. His ruthless voice caused the expressions of the hundreds of thousands of people behind him to change. However, when the surrounding gods saw this scene, their expressions didn't change at all. Instead, they quietly watched. Just as the true dragon son of heaven had said, if one wanted to obtain an opportunity, one had to pay a price, even the price of their lives. As for letting them scout, how was that possible? The other few hundred people saw the youth whose body had exploded, and despair appeared on their faces. Their bodies trembled violently as they walked forward. Peng, peng, peng. Just as they stepped onto the first step, a ray of light flashed, and their bodies instantly disappeared. They had been completely purified. Hiss. Seeing this scene, everyone sucked in a deep breath of cold air. Even the god's eyes shone with a strange light. This is a complete suicide mission. The gods won't let us continue to explore, right? The hundreds of thousands of people behind were panicking as they spoke in fear. Wang Xian and the rest frowned slightly. This divine tomb in front of them was much more dangerous than the one in the North Pole. I can't see any clues at all. Perhaps only the gods will be able to discover some clues when they go over. The true dragon son of heaven frowned slightly and looked around. There were more than 30 gods in the area. There were 10 in the Lingxiao treasured palace, about 10 in the sacred hall, 2 in the true dragon son of heaven, 5 in the Dragon King's faction, and some other gods. Hearing the words of the true dragon son of heaven, the eyes of the gods in the Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall flickered and looked at each other. They slowly scanned their surroundings. Some of the gods who were alone saw this scene and knew that it wasn't good. Their faces were filled with wariness. Boom! At this moment, a ring of fire appeared in the sky. The 8 gods and tens of thousands of subordinates of the fire god palace slowly appeared. Hey! Suixinhuo, Suiyang, didn't you go to the North Pole's divine tomb? Why are you here? An elder from the Holy Church asked them plainly. Let's take a look over here. When Suixinhuo, Suiyang, and the other gods in the throne of the god of fire heard the elder's words, their expressions turned sour. Hey! It's that scoundrel, sister. It's that scoundrel. When the gods in the throne of the god of fire appeared, Hura and Seer saw Suixinhuo in the middle. Their expressions changed slightly as they spoke angrily. Hey! What's wrong, girl? Wang Xian was slightly stunned as he looked at the 2 girls. Daddy, it's that scoundrel. When we lit the divine fire, they wanted to recruit us. My sister and I didn't agree. In the end, they wanted to snatch our divine kingdom and even wanted to kill us. Hura said angrily. Is that so? Wang Xian narrowed his eyes slightly and looked at the group of people in the palace of the god of fire in the sky. Huh! In the sky, as a god, he could sense the gazes of everyone around him. When Suixinhuo sensed Hura's gaze, he immediately turned his head to look. When he saw Hura and Seer's faces, he was slightly stunned. A terrifying murderous intent shot out from his eyes instantly. Just now, you seem to be saying that you want the godly state experts to scout ahead. Suixinhuo's eyes were filled with awe. His gaze swept across the surrounding gods before finally locking onto Hura and Seer. When everyone heard his words, they were slightly stunned. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Invincible Dragon Path. Chapter 1956. 1956. Go and scout the way, or you will die. In front of the main tomb of the South Pole god, everyone looked at the group of people in the Fire God Palace in surprise. He wanted a godly state expert to scout the way in front. What did he mean by that? Seeing the murderous look in Suixinhuo's eyes, everyone looked at the place he was looking at. When they realized that it was the direction of the Dragon King and the rest, everyone was stunned again. When Wang Xian saw Suixinhuo looking over, a hint of killing intent flashed in his eyes. He didn't expect that the experts from the palace of the god of fire had injured his 2 little girls. If he knew, he would have left them here when they were at the North Pole just now. Perhaps only the gods can probe them. When the son of heaven of the true dragon saw Suixinhuo's gaze, the corner of his mouth curled up slightly as he said directly, Suixinhuo, what's going on? Suiyang and the others looked at Suixinhuo, who was filled with killing intent, and asked with furrowed brows. Senior Marshal Brother, Huaji and Liu Yang were killed by those 2 girls. Suixinhuo said to the experts of the Fire God Palace with a gloomy expression. Last time, 2 of his best subordinates were killed by a sneak attack and didn't even have the chance to revive, causing him to burn with anger. Unfortunately, he hadn't been able to keep those 2 girls last time. He hadn't expected to meet them here today. It's them. The other gods in the Fire God Palace instantly revealed cold expressions. They all stared at Hua. A killing intent gathered on their bodies. Just now, at the North Pole, they had almost been killed by that expert. Their hearts were already burning with anger, and they felt incomparably sullen. Now that they had met the 2 people who had killed the god of Fire Palace, they naturally found a place to vent their anger. HMPH, it's you who are courting death. Do you want to recruit us? You even want to steal our things. You bunch of scoundrels deserve to die. Hura heard their words and similarly shouted at them with an icy expression. You two little girls who are courting death. I want to see where you want to run to now. Sui Shenhua's body shook, and flames instantly rose. In the sky above him, a cloud of fire condensed. His gaze was fixed on Huarasea, and it was filled with a sinister expression. Boom, boom, boom. In the surroundings, the gods of the fire god palace immediately flew around and surrounded Huarasea and the others. I'll give you a chance to live. Step on the stairs to the entrant. Otherwise, you will die. Sui Yang looked at the entrance of the divine tomb and growled in a low voice filled with killing intent. The throne room of the god of fire. I think all of you are courting death. Wang Xian swept his gaze across all of them. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he spoke with a solemn face. This. Everyone around was astonished when they saw this scene. Even the gods were stunned. No one had expected this to happen. Haha, are we courting death? If you dare to kill the god of the fire god palace, you will have to pay a heavy price. If these two little girls don't step onto the stairs today, I will let them enjoy the pain of being burned by flames. What? You, a mere dragon king, want to make an enemy out of the fire god palace? Don't think that just because your dragon king has some strength, you dare to be arrogant in front of the throne of the fire god palace. Don't provoke us. Sui Shenhua stared at Wang Xian and said coldly. So what if we provoke them? Wang Xian's eyes sparkled and he looked slightly embarrassed. Beside him, the members of the Dragon Palace had murderous intent in their eyes. They were ready to fight at any time. Father, we are not their match. Xia frowned when she saw this scene. She pulled his arm and said to Wang Xian worriedly. Father, those two girls are the daughters of the Dragon King. Hiss, the throne of the Fire God Palace is not going to fight with the Dragon King, right? It seems that when the Dragon King killed the Yamen god, it was because of his daughters. I didn't expect that his two daughters had ignited the divine fire. They shouldn't be his biological daughters. Those two girls are obviously gods who have been resurrected. However, the Dragon King and the others have the strength of 5 gods. If they fight, the Lingxiao treasured palace will pay attention to them. The Dragon King's strength is not bad, but he might be weaker than the Lingxiao treasured palace, the sacred hall, the throne room of the fire god palace, the true dragon association, and the son of heaven of the devil dragon. Everyone looked shocked when they saw the conflict between the throne of the fire god palace and the Dragon King, as well as some grudges. Ever since the Dragon King displayed his terrifying strength last time, it instantly shook the entire earth. Soon after, the sacred true dragon association was established, and the demonic dragon son of heaven destroyed the pyramid forces. As a result, the forces of the Lingxiao treasured palace, the sacred hall, the throne of the fire god palace, the sacred true dragon association, the demonic dragon son of heaven, and the Dragon King became the most powerful existences on earth. Some people ranked these forces, and the weakest force was probably the Dragon King's force. The 5 gods on the Dragon King's side were still a bit inferior to the Fire God Palace's Luan. However, they shouldn't be able to fight. After all, the 5 gods on the Dragon King's side, even if the Fire God Palace's Luan can destroy them, there's still a chance that some of the gods on his side will perish together. Seeing the conflict between the Dragon King and the throne of the Fire God Palace, some people were slightly worried for the Dragon King and the rest as they spoke in a low voice. Some people nodded in agreement. After all, the divine tomb was right in front of them. Weakening the strength of the throne of the Fire God Palace would not be beneficial to it. TSK, I've always heard that the Dragon King is extremely arrogant. If that's the case, do you really think that 5 gods are enough to fight against the throne of the Fire God Palace? Upon hearing Wang Xian's words, Sui Shen, Huahua, and Sui Yang narrowed their eyes slightly. There was a hint of madness in their eyes. HMPH, if you really want to fight, it won't do you any good either. Hua swept her gaze across the 8 godly state experts. She frowned and snorted coldly at them. Ha ha, the throne of the Fire God Palace has descended from a distant star field. Why would we be afraid of you? The majesty of the throne of the Fire God Palace is not something a puny Dragon King can provoke. Now, I'll give you 3 seconds to consider. You 2 little girls go and scout the way. Otherwise, you will die. If you Dragon King dare to stop us, then we will die together. Suishin Hua roared with a furious face. Not long ago, the throne of the Fire God Palace was almost destroyed by that mysterious person, which made them come here in a sorry state. How could they, who were already filled with anger, fear a dragon king? The might of the throne of the Fire God Palace could not be violated. Ha ha, good, good, everyone who supports the Lingxiao treasured palace. Ha ha, sometimes our major forces should show their proper dignity and let some ants know the consequences of provoking us. As soon as Suixin Huo finished speaking, several gods beside him and the gods of the sacred hall said with smiles on their faces. They were happy to see this scene. They were happy to see the gods step up the stairs to test the waters. Hiss! The gods of the Fire God Palace are so powerful. Now the Dragon King and the others are in trouble. Judging from the attitude of the Fire God Palace, if the Dragon King were to protect the two girls, he would probably be attacked by the 8 gods of the Fire God Palace. Chapter 1957. 1957. On the dusk of the Fire God Palace. Behind them, hundreds of thousands of people looked at the powerful gods of the Fire God Palace and were amazed. This was the power of the Fire God Palace and the majesty of the Fire God Palace. They looked at the Dragon King and the others sympathetically. The Dragon King was already very powerful to be able to reach this stage, but there was still a slight gap between him and the top forces that had descended. After all, the Dragon King's faction is still a little weak. Although there are 5 gods, their overall strength is a little weaker than the true dragon gathering. Everyone thought to themselves as they looked at the Dragon King with flickering eyes. They were waiting for the Dragon King's decision. The atmosphere instantly became solemn. He, looks like that Xiao Rant's master is going to be unlucky today. At the Ling Xiao treasured palace, Jin Feng's face was full of smiles as he watched this scene. The middle-aged god beside him also smiled faintly. Dad, we are preparing to escape. Hua and Xia revealed a hint of anxiety on their faces as they transmitted their voices to Wang Xian. I should have killed you guys just now. But it's not too late now. Wang Xian stroked the heads of the 2 girls and uttered a sentence that made everyone around him feel baffled. A hint of ruthlessness flashed in his eyes. Kill. As soon as Wang Xian finished his sentence, a piercing sound came from the sky. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Following that, the sound of an arrow attack instantly resonated in front of the tomb of the gods. What? The sudden explosion shocked everyone. Roar. You want to kill our little princess? Why don't you see if we agree to it? Hey, we just arrived here, and now we can have a big fight. It's so cool. Ao Xingmu, lock them up. Leave no one alive. Just as everyone was in a daze, wild and untamed voices suddenly sounded. Everyone was slightly shocked and looked at the people beside the Dragon King in shock. Even the gods of the Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall were shocked. Bang! In the sky, the corpse of a god of Fire Palace fell to the ground. Everyone saw a flash of light, followed by the death of a god with 2 wisps of divine fire. This. Roar, roar, roar. With a series of violent roars, Ao Chitian stared at the 2 top-tier experts of the Fire God Palace in the middle of the sky. A blood-red airwave rushed toward them. A 1,000-meter-long ocean-pacifying divine needle smashed toward them. It was extremely violent. The terrifying arrow slashed through the air and attacked the surrounding gods. Crackle, clang. The violent thunder and lightning suddenly resounded in the sky. Countless thunderbolts began to cover the entire sky. A cold sword light pierced into everyone's ears. A golden radiance flashed and attacked a god of the Fire God Palace. Roar, roar. Flames lit up the sky and another beast roar was heard. Ao Feng Huang transformed into a 1,000-meter-large body. He spread his wings and emitted a terrifying pressure. The 8-limbed devil Shaw let out a strange cry. His body was shrouded in darkness. A deathly stillness came from their bodies and locked onto the 2 gods in a teasing manner. At this moment, other than Ao Tuxing who was standing beside Wang Xian, the rest of the members of the Dragon Palace had all moved. There were a total of 9 godly state experts. All of them had ignited a wisp of divine fire. Among them, Ao Chitian and Ao Xingmu, who were the strongest, had the ability to fight 3 levels above them. Ao Yarrow also had the ability to easily assassinate 3 wisps of divine fire gods. As for the other members of the Dragon Palace, they were all able to fight 1 level above them. When Ao Chitian, Ao Xingmu, and the other 9 attacked, all the gods in the Fire God Palace in the sky were completely stunned. Especially the 2 of them, Suixin, Flame, and Suiyang. When they saw a god being assassinated in an instant and Ao Chitian and Ao Xingmu attacking with terrifying auras, their faces were filled with shock. How was this possible? Didn't the Dragon King's forces only have 5 gods? Was the strongest only comparable to 2 wisps of divine fire? Now, that berserk devil monkey and Trent-like creature were emitting auras that even they were extremely afraid of. There was also that incomparably terrifying creature hiding in the void. Just what kind of existence had they provoked? Ah! At this moment, a miserable cry sounded. The god of divine fire in the Fire God Palace was looking at his body with fear. In front of them, Bhe was standing in front of him with a ghastly and terrifying face. He looked at the god who was gradually turning into blood and let out a loud cry. No, no, no! The god of divine fire cried out with fear on his face. He could only watch as his body was rapidly melting. At this moment, he was incomparably terrified. Just what kind of existence had they provoked? Once he was completely turned into blood, he wouldn't even have the possibility of being revived. Keek, die, die! The 8-headed god cried out strangely as he looked at the god with a ghastly gaze. Not good, senior brother, save us. At this moment, a terrified cry for help sounded from beside him. Everyone looked over at the same time. Another god with a wisp of divine fire was on the verge of death. In front of him was Mo Sho, who was at the same level as old Yabi. The 8 points and Mo Sho's poison were extremely terrifying. Even the other members of the Dragon Palace who were at the same level were extremely fearful. This. Seeing this scene, everyone around was shocked. Even the gods of the Lingxiao Treasured Palace's sacred hall narrowed their eyes slightly. All of his strength is comparable to lighting 2 wisps of divine fire. Some of them are even more terrifying. Hiss, 9 experts with at least 2 wisps of divine fire. And this is the Dragon King, his 2 daughters, and the one holding a shield beside him. There are still 4 god-level experts who haven't made a move. Oh my god! Gulp! What kind of existence is the Dragon King? He actually has 10 god-level subordinates, and all of them are so terrifying. Is his strength comparable to the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Sacred Hall? Even the Sacred True Dragon Union will have to kneel before this power. A series of shocking voices sounded. In the sky in front of the majestic divine tomb, the 9 subordinates of the Dragon King completely suppressed the Fire God Palace's throne. In less than a minute, 2 Fire God Palace's throne gods were killed, and a few of them were on the verge of death. The battle only broke out in a split second. Damn it, how could this be? Both Suixin Huo and Suiyang were filled with fear. They glanced around with gloomy faces. Roar, those who offend our Dragon Palace will die. Ao Chitian roared and threw the ocean-pacifying needle at Suiyang. Don't even think about saving them. Just watch them die one by one. In the end, it will be your turn. Ao Xingmu waved the branches under him. Each branch was like a divine tree, filled with barbs. It was extremely terrifying. Chapter 1958. 1958. In the evening of 1958, in the Fire God Palace. Boom, boom, boom. A terrifying battle broke out in the sky above the South Pole. Ao Chitian and Ao Xingmu had completely locked onto the flame and the flame. As the most powerful dragon species in the Dragon Palace, the 2 of them had the ability to fight 3 levels above them. With their strength, they could easily deal with the 2 of them. As for the gods of the Fire God Palace, they weren't so lucky. Of the remaining 6 Fire God Palace gods, 2 had lit 2 wisps of divine fire, and the other 4 were all gods with 1 wisp of divine fire. There was a huge gap between the other 7 members of the Dragon Palace. Run, run, run. The fight lasted less than a minute, and the gods of the Fire God Palace turned around and fled in fear. The gap between them was simply too big. They were simply not a match for them. If you want to escape, can you? Mao Zedong held a longbow in his hand, and 10 arrows were drawn on it. Roar! Each arrow transformed into a terrifying wind dragon and chased after the gods who wanted to escape. All of them are gods with strength above 2 wisps of divine fire. How are we supposed to fight them? The gods of the fire god palace were filled with terror. With their strength, they had instantly killed 2 of them. Facing 7 powerful gods, they were simply courting death. Die. A god with 2 wisps of divine fire couldn't help but let out a low roar of terror. Keek, how are we supposed to fight them? I don't know how to fight them. They are still as arrogant as before. Die. Bhe waved his arm, and drops of black poisonous snake-like energy shot forward. At least 100 million black poisonous snakes covered an area of more than 100 kilometers in the sky. Crackle, crackle. Thunder Dragon Lock Domain. Aochi stood in the distance and waved the thunder hammer in his hand with a calm expression. Countless bolts of lightning sealed the surroundings and watched this scene indifferently. P.U.R. In the sky, one of the 4 sealed gods suddenly let out a miserable cry. Beside him, a streak of light flickered, followed by another 2 wisps of divine fire that descended. A bunch of trash, quickly finish them off. Ao Yaro's voice rang out in the void. Die. Ao Jian wielded his metal sword and swung it forward. Lightning, arrows, sword rays, and black poisonous snakes. Terrifying attacks came one after another as the 3 gods of the fire god palace attacked. Each attack covered an area of 50 to 60 kilometers. Such terrifying attacks could wipe out an entire city in an instant. Senior brother, save us, save us. The 3 gods' desperate voices rang out. No, Dragon King, I want you all to die. When Sui Yang heard the screams of the fallen, his eyes turned blood red. With a move of his arm, the divine mountain of fire stream appeared in his hand. The entire divine mountain was the size of a palm, and there were streams of terrifying lava flowing on it. With a wave of his arm, the entire divine mountain of fire stream instantly became bigger. The divine mountain turned into a terrifying mountain that was 100,000 meters tall. Lava flowed on top of it, and the temperature inside reached at least a few thousand degrees Celsius. What kind of concept was this? It was close to the temperature of the sun. Crash. In an instant, the temperature around the South Pole reached over 100 degrees. The surrounding ice and frost melted rapidly and turned into seawater. Be careful. Xingmu, catch. Wang Xian looked at the divine flaming mountain and reminded Ao Chitian, Ao Xingmu, and the rest. Not long ago, Sui Yang had used this divine weapon to block Ao Crab's attack. One had to know that Ao Crab's combat strength was comparable to a god with 6 wisps of divine fire. One could imagine how powerful this divine weapon was. He waved his arm and threw the god-striking branch to Ao Xingmu. The god-striking branch, in Ao Xingmu's hands, could erupt with even more powerful attack. Endless wood, god-striking branch, bind. Ao Xingmu took the god-striking branch, looked at the incomparably terrifying divine weapon, and waved his arm. Boom! A divine kingdom appeared behind him. It looked like a dragon's den, with sparks of fire and thorns falling from it. Countless flaming thorns flew towards the divine fire mountain. A shocking scene appeared in the sky. Countless thorns fell from the sky and flew towards the 100,000-meter tall mountain. Boom! 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 The god-beating branches landed on the divine weapon and turned slightly red. Fire stream divine mountain, explode. When Sui Yang saw that Ao Xingmu was actually twining around the entire divine weapon, his expression changed slightly as he shouted loudly. Rumble. Following that, the entire divine mountain seemed to explode. Waves of sharp flaming rocks shot towards the countless thorns. Crack, crack, crack. In an instant, half of the thorns were broken, causing Ao Xingmu's expression to change slightly. Kill this guy first, then help Ao Xingmu. Bhe stared at Suixinhuo and roared. Kill. In an instant, the other leaders of the Dragon Palace assisted Ao Chitian in attacking Suixinhuo. Ao Yaroro's figure was hidden in the surroundings, ready to launch a fatal attack at any time. Get lost. Seeing that only the 2 of them were left in the Fire God Palace, Suixinhuo's heart pounded violently. With a wave of his arm, A divine kingdom of the fire palace appeared in the sky and smashed toward the eight-headed Ao Jian and the others. Roar, you dare to be distracted while fighting with me. Ao Chitien's body trembled when he saw Suixinhuo release his divine kingdom. Behind him, a dragon cave of the divine kingdom also appeared. Inside his divine kingdom, there were blood-red chains. Apart from the violent aura, there was also brutality. The blood-red chains formed an armor, looking extremely powerful. Blood chain armor, mad dragon throne, Ao Chitien roared, and the chains in the divine kingdom instantly wrapped around his body. Crack, crack, crack. Ao Chitien's body grew rapidly, reaching a size of 3,000 meters. The blood-red chains wrapped around his body, leaving only 3 terrifying pupils with Goyu. Behind him, the dragon cave of the divine kingdom turned into a blood-red throne. In an instant, the energy in Ao Chitien's body became even more violent. The sea-pacifying needle was covered by the blood-red chains. He raised the needle and smashed it heavily toward Suixinhuo's divine kingdom. Boom! A tremendous force landed on the divine kingdom, causing the entire divine kingdom to fly into the sky. Pu. Suixinhuo's expression instantly changed, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Kill. At this moment, numerous powerful attacks from the leader of the Dragon Palace attacked him. The entire world was covered in all sorts of energy. The difference is too great. The entire Fire God Palace's 6 gods died in an instant. These are gods. How can the Dragon King have such powerful subordinates? The Fire God Palace is in danger this time. 6 gods died in less than a minute, and there are only 2 gods left in the Fire God Palace. Is this the true strength of the Dragon King? Every time the Dragon King erupts with an extremely terrifying power, he becomes stronger and stronger. The Fire God Palace didn't expect that they would kick an iron plate this time. A series of shocking voices sounded from below. Chapter 1959. 1959. In 1959, under the dusk of the Fire God Palace. How is this possible? How can the Dragon King have such powerful subordinates? The demon monkey and the plant-type creature both have at least 2 attributes. It was not only the hundreds of thousands of ordinary people behind him who were shocked. At the position closest to the divine tomb, the eyes of the gods were also filled with shock. Jin Feng looked up at the horrifying battle in the sky with a shocked face. All the subordinates of the Dragon King were not weaker than him. What kind of concept was this? Besides the top-level combat strength, their Lingxiao treasured palace was not as strong as the subordinates of the Dragon King. They were the gods who had descended, and they were the Lingxiao treasured palace. Phew, this Dragon King really exceeded our expectations. What kind of opportunity did he get? Ji Lingfei's senior brother took a deep breath and looked in front of him with surprise, his eyes shining. The other immortals and gods of the Lingxiao Palace were also shocked. The divine weapon of the Fire God Palace is almost as powerful as the 4 wisps of divine fire. This is the biggest trump card of the Fire God Palace, but it's still being held back. That plant-type creature is almost as powerful as the 4 wisps of divine fire. In the sacred hall, an old man with white hair watched the battle in the sky with a heavy expression. At this moment, the Dragon King's strength was enough to make even the sacred hall's heart palpitate. The 2 forces were so shocked, not to mention the surrounding immortals and gods. Even the sons of heaven of the true dragons had solemn expressions on their faces. The current force of the Dragon King could easily kill the sons of heaven of the true dragons. Roar roar, prison lock mad dragon, kill. Suddenly, violent sounds came from the sky. Ao Chitien was covered by the chain armor, and countless blood-red chains came out from the throne behind him, completely surrounding him and Suixinhuo. A radius of dozens of kilometers was covered by the chains. The Goyu in Ao Chitien's 3 eyes was spinning rapidly. He held the ocean-pacifying divine needle and threw it directly at Suixinhuo. The leaders of the Dragon Palace were watching from the back. They knew that Suixinhuo would definitely die under this attack. A god with 3 wisps of divine fire was much weaker than Ao Chitien. Even if he had a powerful divine kingdom. No. Suixinhuo looked at Ao Chitien, who was ferocious and brutal, and felt the power on his body. His face was full of fear. Bang, bang, Bang! The blood-red chains wrapped around the ocean-pacifying divine needle and landed on the divine kingdom in front of him. The powerful fire palace collapsed instantly, and the last attack landed on his body. Our fire god palace will not let you go. Just you wait, just you wait. With blood-red eyes, Suixinhuo roared at Ao Chitian and the others, and the life force on his body slowly dissipated. Hualala! Ao Chitian waved his arm, and countless blood-red chains returned to the throne beside him. Fire stream divine mountain rain, explode. At this moment, a furious voice sounded in the sky beside him. In the sky above the divine tomb, Suiyang felt the disappearance of Suiyen's life force, and a ferocious look appeared on his face. The entire 100,000-meter-tall divine mountain with a diameter of 10,000 meters directly erupted with flaming mountains. Thousands of flaming mountains smashed toward Ao Xingmu, destroying the world. The terrifying flames covered an area of more than 1,000 kilometers. Hiss! Seeing this scene, the hundreds of thousands of ordinary people were filled with shock. If this had happened on Earth in the past, it would have caused the entire Earth to tremble. Roar! 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 You are the only god left in the fire god palace. Prepare to die. Ao Chitian looked in Ao Xingmu's direction and roared. He held the ocean-pacifying needle in his hand and smashed it towards the flaming mountains. Bang! 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 The rod smashed into the flaming mountains one after another, sending them flying to the side. Ao Xingmu swung countless dark red thorns and lashed them towards the flaming mountains. Whoosh! 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 Crackle! Crackle! Clang! Clang! Roar! Roar! The other 7 leaders of the Dragon Palace immediately attacked the flaming mountains one by one. The flaming mountains landed in the sky above the divine tombs and were directly defeated by the divine light-winged tiger. At a height of more than 100,000 meters, when Suiyang saw this scene, his face was extremely ugly. His body was trembling, and his face was twisted. They would never have thought that this would be the situation when they wanted to use the Dragon King to show the majesty of the Fire God Palace and avenge the 2 gods in the Fire God Palace. He was the only one left alive in the entire Fire God Palace. Next, he would have to face the siege of the Dragon King's subordinates. Not good. Just as he was floating in the sky above the fire stream divine mountain and his mind was running wild, he felt a sense of danger. This shocked him as he thought of the black and white terrifying figure. Divine Mountain, protect me, he quickly shouted as his body drilled into the divine weapon. However, at this moment, he felt a chill on his lower body as a destructive energy melted his lower body. Die, Sacred Mountain's core. Suiyang roared as an extremely powerful energy erupted from the Sacred Mountain. Nothingness. Ao Yarrow sensed the fire energy that could kill him. With a low roar, the Sacred Mountain's core penetrated his body and quickly fled into the distance. What? Seeing Ao Yarrow dodge the attack that could severely injure the 4 wisps of divine fire, Suiyang was horrified. Kill him, Keek. At this moment, cold voices caused Suiyen's expression to change drastically. He looked at his lower body, which had completely disappeared. His expression was incomparably malevolent, and traces of despair surged into his heart. The strongest divine artifact they had brought this time was actually restrained. Of the dozen or so gods that had descended, 3 had fallen midway, and 2 had been killed by the Dragon King's 2 daughters. Now, he was the only one left who had been killed by the Dragon King's subordinates. He knew that he was absolutely not a match for the Dragon King's subordinates. The only thing that awaited him was death. Dragon King, just you wait. Even if I become a ghost, I won't let you off. If I can live, I'll be your nightmare in the future. Suiyang shouted shrilly as his body moved. What happened next shocked everyone. He merged his entire body into the divine weapon. The entire divine fire mountain shrank to 10 meters in size as he crashed into the divine tomb below. This, the strongest person in the divine fire palace, has been forced to this extent. This is a narrow escape. He actually wants to barge into the divine tomb. When everyone saw Suiyen's desperate actions, they were all shocked. When the gods saw Suiyang colliding into the divine tomb like a meteor, their hearts trembled. The forces of the gods that had once suppressed Earth were about to come to an end. Today was truly the dusk of the Fire God Palace. Chapter 1960. 1960 ignited the divine fire. Boom. In the sky above God Lord Guangyi's tomb, a 10-meter large, concentrated sun-like force crashed into the divine tomb. The enormous sound caused the entire divine tomb to tremble slightly. Roar, roar, roar. A divine tiger condensed from the light attribute attacked the divine flaming mountain. At least dozens of divine tigers with the strength of the divine realm pounced on the divine fire mountain. Crack, crack, crack. Soon, the divine fire mountain collapsed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The 4 wisps of divine weapons let out a final sorrowful cry. Boom. An extremely powerful flame rose in the sky above the divine tomb. Dozens of divine tigers disappeared under this terrifying flame. A powerful divine weapon was completely destroyed. At the sight of this scene, everyone's faces were filled with shock. At this point, the power of the Fire God Palace would no longer exist. Everyone looked at this scene in shock and couldn't help but take a deep breath. They slowly looked at the Dragon King's subordinates. The tyrannical demon monkey, the sacred and powerful plant-type creature, the berserk thunder-type creature with a spear in one hand and lightning in the other, the ice-cold swordsman, the powerful archer, and the eerie and terrifying 2 middle-aged men. Each of them was exuding a terrifying aura. Too strong. A god who had lit the divine fire couldn't help but exclaim. Yeah, too strong. The Dragon King's force is probably no weaker than the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Sacred Hall, right? Maybe not stronger than the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Sacred Hall, but definitely stronger than all the other forces. I wonder where the Dragon King has so many terrifying subordinates. It's simply too shocking. The Dragon King didn't make a move in this battle at all. His 2 daughters didn't make a move either. Even so, they still completely crushed the Fire God Palace's throne. Shocked voices came from behind. They looked at the Dragon King and his subordinates with reverence. This time, the Fire God Palace's Luan perfectly demonstrated what it meant to court death. At first, he had arrogantly asked the Dragon King's daughter to scout ahead of the divine tomb, but now it had become like this. It was really ironic. If I had known earlier, I would have listened to junior sister. In the middle of the Lingxiao Treasured Palace, the middle-aged god was slightly shocked as he watched this scene. When he had heard his junior sister say that she had joined forces with the Dragon King, he had scoffed. However, the strength that the Dragon King had displayed now even made them fear him. That's right, fear. The current Dragon King had the same level of strength as their Lingxiao Treasured Palace. The Dragon King must not know about that Xiao Ran. The middle-aged man immediately transmitted his voice to Jin Feng. I know. Jin Feng also nodded with a solemn expression. From the Dragon King's killing of Yamen God to the Dragon King's killing of the 2 gods of Huangshan, and then to the Dragon King's killing of the throne of the Fire God Palace. The Dragon King's strength was enough to shock Jin Feng. Not far away, the eyes of the gods of the Sacred Hall were shining. It seems that the alliance with the Lingxiao Treasured Palace must be carried out as soon as possible. The old man in the middle of the Holy Church muttered as he looked in the direction of the Lingxiao Treasured Palace. When the middle-aged man saw the old man's gaze, he nodded his head slowly. What a pity. Moreover, they are both fire-attributed divine kingdoms. Wang Xian shook his head slightly regretfully when he saw Sui Yang crashing into the divine tomb with the divine weapon. The corpse of a god with 3 wisps of divine fire could at least give birth to 2 gods in the Dragon Palace. However, this harvest is not bad. Wang Xian smiled. 7 gods could at least add another 5 to 6 godly state members to the Dragon Palace. In addition to the resources in their divine kingdom, I wonder if all the resources in the throne room of the Fire God Palace are enough to ignite the divine fire by myself. Wang Xian thought to himself. Dragon King. At this moment, the group of leaders of the Dragon Palace returned to his back. They put away the divine kingdom and the corpse of the god of the throne room of the god of fire and shouted respectfully. Let's go to the throne room of the god of fire. Wang Xian glanced at them in satisfaction and looked at Hua Caier. Brother Daddy is mighty. Hua-Er's small face was filled with excitement as she held onto Wang Xian's arm and shouted loudly. Xia, who was at the side, held onto her other arm and was also filled with happiness. They thought that Wang Xian was no match for them. However, they didn't expect that the members of the Dragon Palace who were following them were actually so powerful. Each and every one of them possessed strength that was even stronger than them. The faction that bullied them was killed immediately. Hihi, let's go. Wang Xian smiled at them and teleported in the direction of the throne room of the Fire God Palace. The members of the Dragon Palace followed closely behind. Phew. Seeing the Dragon King and the rest leaving, everyone had a look of awe on their faces. This throne room of the Fire God Palace should belong to a powerful divine kingdom. Soon, Wang Xian and the rest arrived in the sky above the throne room of the Fire God Palace. Wang Xian's body shook and the Dragon Shadow Divine Kingdom appeared behind him. Buzz. The powerful palace that had descended to Earth more than 10 years ago had completely disappeared from Earth. There are really a lot of treasures in there. Sensing the spiritual herbs and other items in the palace, Wang Xian's eyes sparkled. As the gods that had descended to Earth after the Earth's metamorphosis, the Fire God Palace was much stronger than the Pyramid and the Divine Sea Palace. They had obtained many treasures in the ancient lands. Ao Yao, go and check on the situation at the South Pole tomb. Inform anyone who finds a way to enter immediately. It's the Dragon King. Wang Xian instructed Ao Yao. The South Pole tomb was different from the North Pole tomb. Based on the current situation, it would be difficult to enter the South Pole tomb. In fact, without absolute strength, one might not even be able to enter a tomb. There was no need for Wang Xian to wait there. Since he had already entered the tomb at the North Pole, he would be satisfied as long as he could obtain some treasures. Let's go back. There's no need to join in the fun, Wang Xian said to the two girls as he teleported to the villa in Jiang City. You two girls can play by the side. I'll see if I can ignite the divine fire. As Wang Xian spoke to the two girls, he went straight to the top of the villa. The resources obtained from destroying the imperial throne of the god of fire was enough to increase his strength. As expected, he could ignite the divine fire today. If I can ignite the divine fire and lift up the divine kingdom, I will have the strength to kill 5 wisps of the divine fire god. Wang Xian's eyes flickered as he took out various resources and placed them into his mouth. They were quickly converted into divine crystals. Buzz. After an unknown period of time, Wang Xian felt his body tremble and transformed into the body of the divine dragon. The 5,000-meter-long body of the divine dragon was coiled above the villa. The 7-colored divine light emitted an extremely powerful dragon's might. Chapter 1961. 1961 Invitation to the Soaring Heavens Palace. The gigantic body of the dragon was emitting a 7-colored divine glow. Its 5,000-meter-long body was slowly growing. In the villa, Hua-Er felt the pressure coming from above. She flew to the sky with a shocked expression. When they saw the majestic and sacred 7-colored divine dragon, their small faces revealed a shocked expression. Buzz. Wang Xian slowly opened his eyes. Above his head, a wisp of divine fire slowly condensed. The divine fire was a 7-colored expression that emitted a divine glow. The divine glow slowly enveloped Wang Xian's entire body. However, at this moment, a hint of doubt flashed across Wang Xian's eyes. The system notification to level up did not ring out. There's still one more step to lift the divine kingdom, Wang Xian muttered in his heart as his eyes sparkled. In order to become a god, one had to take 2 steps to ignite the divine fire and lift the kingdom of God. Only by doing these 2 steps could one condense the divine spark and become a true god. Even if one ignited the divine fire, one could not be called a true god without the kingdom of God. This was because 90% of the power of a god came from the kingdom of God. The kingdom of God was equivalent to a huge energy station. Without an energy station, a true god would not be able to release powerful energy. It seems like I need to upgrade the level of the Dragon Palace before I can lift the kingdom of God, Wang Xian thought to himself. He looked at the 2 shocked girls and smiled. His body moved and returned to his human form. Daddy, was that your true dragon body? The two girls flew over in shock and sized up Wang's yarn from head to toe. "Chmem, how about it? Do you want one?" Wang's yarn said to the two girls with a smile. "Want one? Is it that easy to obtain the true dragon's body? Also, Daddy, your true dragon's body looks much more powerful than the other true dragon's sons of heaven. It's simply too cool," Hura said with her mouth slightly agape. "Dad, your divine fire has already been lit. Why didn't you lift up the divine kingdom?" "Where's the divine kingdom?" Seer asked doubtfully from the side. "I still need to wait for some things before I can become a god. There's no rush." Wang's yarn smiled and shook his head. Currently, he was still lacking 3 divine kingdoms, namely the wood attribute, the thunder attribute and the light attribute. Once the dragon palace devoured these 3 divine kingdoms, he would be able to become a god immediately. However, he was not in a hurry. Currently, there were a group of members in the dragon palace. With Ao Crab around, there was no need for him to take care of things. In the next few days, Wang's yarn stayed in the villa. However, in these few days, the entire world was in an uproar. Hundreds of millions of people had swarmed into the tomb of the eternal god in the North Pole and South Pole. Countless people were frenziedly trying to enter the tomb of the eternal god to look for their own opportunities. As for what happened on the first day, it also shocked the world. Many people didn't believe that the Dragon King and his men had destroyed the throne of the Fire God Palace at the beginning. But as the videos appeared on the internet, everyone was stunned. The power of the Dragon King completely exceeded the expectations of the whole world. The powerful subordinates of the Dragon King shocked everyone. The forces of the entire world underwent a huge change again. The rise of the Dragon King's forces also filled the natives on Earth with fighting spirit. The Dragon King could reach his current level. Why couldn't he? Why couldn't he become the chosen one? As long as he could obtain an opportunity in the tomb of the eternal god, he had a chance to become the main character of this world. This was the tomb of the eternal god, an existence that was even more powerful than the gods. If he could obtain the inheritance of the eternal god, everyone held a belief. Therefore, in a few short days, hundreds of millions of people poured into the North Pole of the South Pole. However, from the beginning to the end, not a single person was able to enter the tomb of the Southern Lightwing god. On the contrary, it was the people in the North Pole who found the law of entry. A few days later, all the gods and forces poured into the Northern Lightwing Godlord's divine tomb, and over 100 million people stepped into the Northern Lightwing Godlord's divine tomb. Time slowly passed, and all kinds of news came from the Northern Lightwing Godlord's divine tomb every day. Moreover, many people had obtained pills and weapons inside. In just half a month, at least a few thousand people had risen to the demigod realm because of the divine tomb. As time passed, more and more people obtained opportunities. After all, it was the tomb of a god lord, which was far higher than the god realm. Any spiritual herb in it was at least at the demigod level. Of course, many people had also been buried in the god tomb. In half a month, at least 1 million people had been buried in the god tomb. But this could not stop the crazy cultivators. Dragon King. Another month passed. The clone, Ao Crab, and the rest had returned from the tomb in the North Pole. If we can't enter those mountains, so be it. When we are strong enough, we can force our way in. Wang's yarn looked at them and said faintly. The things that happened when the clone, Ao Crab, and the rest went into the tomb were exactly the same as what he experienced. Wang's yarn was very clear about all the gains he obtained in the divine tomb. He obtained a total of more than 20 divine herbs, ranging from the lowest grade divine herbs to the divine herbs with 6 wisps of divine fire. He obtained a total of 3 divine artifact, a sword, a saber, and an 8 divine fire pagoda. As for the rest of the divine herbs at the demigod level, there were more than 1,000 of them. A formation compass was a great harvest. However, they were not able to enter the main peaks of the divine tomb. Even the Ao Yarrow, who possessed the characteristic of no formation, was unable to enter the main peaks. He was almost severely injured. After searching for a month, Wang's yarn asked them to return. If they continued searching, they might not be able to obtain much. Furthermore, if they wanted to enter the peaks, they might have to risk their lives. Wang Xian took the storage spiritual bag and the weapons one by one and sized them up. The metal attribute sword and the metal attribute saber could be devoured by the 5 elements. Dragon King, the Lingxiao treasured palace has sent an invitation. At this moment, Mo Qinglong walked over and said to Wang Xian, "Huh? An invitation from the Lingxiao treasured palace?" Wang Xian was slightly taken aback as a look of astonishment appeared on his face. He took the invitation and narrowed his eyes slightly when he saw the words on it. An invitation could also be considered an invitation. A god from the Lingxiao treasured palace was engaged to a god from the Holy Church. The engagement would be held in the Lingxiao treasured palace 10 days later. At that time, the Dragon King would be invited to participate in the wedding banquet. Dragon King, as far as I know, the invitation from the Lingxiao treasured palace has invited quite a number of people. All the godly state experts and all the upper echelons of the forces have received the invitation. According to Old Devil's guess, this wedding banquet is more like the Lingxiao treasured palace announcing their alliance with the Holy Church. Otherwise, they wouldn't be making such a big fuss. Mo Qinglong said to Wang Xian from the side. They must be trying to establish their authority. Wang Xian looked at the invitation with his eyes gleaming. His gaze landed on the 2 names at the back of the invitation. Chapter 1962. 1962 Xiao Ran became a god in 1962. Consort Ji Ling, Wang Xian was naturally clear about this name, and Xiao Ran was even more clear about it. When Wang Xian first met her, he recognized her as a fallen god. However, Wang Xian did not interfere with the matters of Xiao Ran and the rest. In his opinion, this was merely a matter of love between men and women. That was until Xiao Ran was killed. Wang Xian didn't know if the Lingxiao treasured palace didn't think Xiao Ran was worthy of Ji Lingfei or what was going on. However, this enmity had already been formed. At this time, the marriage alliance with the Holy Church was held in such a grand manner. Naturally, it was to establish prestige. Wang Xian knocked on the table indifferently. Ever since he came to Earth, with the passage of time, the prestige of the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church was no longer as great as before. Especially after the establishment of the True Dragon Association and the destruction of the Pyramid Fire God Palace. And now, there was the tomb of the Eternal God. Everyone understood that the gods who had descended back then were not invincible existences, and they would also fall. As long as there were enough opportunities, they would be able to sit on the same level as the gods. This undoubtedly dealt a huge blow to the prestige of the gods. Now that the Dragon King and the True Dragon Son of Heaven were both so powerful, what would happen in the future? Therefore, this invitation was obviously to announce to all the forces that the Lingxiao treasured palace was going to join forces with the Holy Church. With their strength, once they joined forces, they would indeed be almost invincible. As long as the other gods did not join forces, no one and no force would be a match for the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church. I wonder if this marriage is a result of Ji Lingfei's own will or... Wang Xian's eyes sparkled. With a move of his body, he disappeared. Master. He hovered above Xiao Ran's villa. Xiao Ran and Liu Mengxian immediately sensed his arrival and immediately shouted respectfully. Can you ignite the divine fire? Wang Xian landed on the top floor of the villa and sized up Xiao Ran. Currently, his strength had already reached the peak of the demigod level. However, reaching the peak of the demigod level did not mean that he could ignite the divine fire. Under Master's nurturing, I have already reached the peak of the demigod level. I feel like I can ignite the divine fire anytime. Master, I plan to go to the god's tomb in a few days to look for some materials to build my own divine kingdom. When the divine kingdom is built, I have the confidence to become a god. Xiao Ran looked at Wang Xian with a determined gaze. After Wang Xian revived Xiao Ran, he gave Xiao Ran a lot of resources. These resources were enough for him to ignite the divine fire. After consuming the eternal fire fetus and the ordinary fetus, his cultivation speed and comprehension ability were considered top-notch in the entire universe. Wang Xian was not too surprised that Xiao Ran was able to ignite the divine fire. It's too slow. I have a decent divine kingdom here. Fuse it and use it as your own divine kingdom. You can upgrade your divine kingdom in the future. Wang Xian shook his head at him. With a wave of his arm, a flaming divine kingdom with a circumference of 70 to 80 kilometers appeared in the sky. The majestic power of the flames made everyone in Jiang City look horrified. Is it the Dragon King? What happened? Everyone in Jiang City was slightly shocked and quickly looked toward the direction of the sea. However, other than being surprised, everyone in Jiang City was not too shocked. The current Dragon King was the king of Jiang City and the god of Jiang City. With the current power of the Dragon King, this flame palace that covered 70 to 80 kilometers in the sky was just a small scene. Master. Xiao Ran raised his head and looked at this incomparably vast divine kingdom. His eyes were filled with excitement and gratitude. Enter this ownerless divine kingdom and fuse it as soon as possible. Light the divine fire and lift up the divine kingdom, Wang Xian instructed Xiao Ran. Yes, master. Xiao Ran nodded respectfully. He could no longer repay his master's kindness with just a few words. Xiao Ran's figure moved and flew directly into the divine kingdom of flames. Liu Mengxian, who was below, was delighted when she saw this scene. She didn't expect that her brother would light up the divine fire and become a true god. Mengxian, have you guys been in contact with Ji Lingfei during this period of time? Wang Xian glanced at the sky and looked at Liu Mengxian as he asked faintly. Sister Lingfei? Liu Mengxian was slightly stunned when she heard his words. She frowned and shook her head. No. Ever since I heard from you that my brother's death was related to the Ling Xiao Palace, I haven't contacted Sister Lingfei. Besides, I haven't told my brother about this matter either. She lowered her head slightly and said, Ask around. When Xiao Ran becomes a god, give this to him. Wang Xian handed the invitation card to Liu Mengxian and said faintly to her. Liu Mengxian took the invitation card and widened her eyes slowly. How is this possible? It's impossible. Sister Lingfei likes my brother so much. Furthermore, it was Sister Lingfei who wanted to be together with my brother back then. When Wang Xian heard what Mengxian said, a thoughtful look appeared on his face. He didn't know the specifics. Everything would be left to them to settle. Within 5 days, Xiao Ran should be able to ignite the divine fire and lift the kingdom of God. Wang Xian took a glance at the sky and returned to the villa. What's going on? Why Sister Lingfei? Liu Mengxian frowned as she muttered to herself when she saw Wang Xian leaving. She took out her phone and showed a hesitant expression. The invitation has been sent out. You should be prepared for the matter in 10 days. This marriage is related to the alliance between the two major forces. It's related to our future. We can't afford to make any mistakes. At this moment, in a courtyard of the Lingxiao Palace, a middle-aged man looked at Ji Lingfei who was sitting under a tree and said faintly, I know. Ji Lingfei sat there and said expressionlessly and coldly, Okay. The middle-aged man glanced at her, then moved and teleported to the Pantheon Hall of the Lingxiao Treasure Hall. Brother Yuan Kuei, is there any problem with Miss Ji Lingfei? Seeing the middle-aged man arrive, all the gods in the Pantheon Hall looked at him, and a middle-aged man asked. My master has already given the order, so there won't be any problems. This time, we must show the power of our Lingxiao Treasure Hall and intimidate the little ones. Yuan Kuei stood in the center and said coldly, Now we have 4 more godly state experts. Apart from the Holy Church, the only one who can threaten us is the Dragon King. An old man said indifferently, How should we deal with the Dragon King's strength? In my opinion, the Dragon King's power doesn't matter at all. If we join forces with the Holy Church, as long as we can guarantee 4 years of invincibility, Earth will become our territory in 4 years. At that time, it's just a Dragon King. Either submit or die. A young god said faintly. Chapter 1963. 1963. In 1963, he became a god. 4 years. The earth had changed a lot, especially with the appearance of the tomb of the eternal god. The tomb of the southern Lightwing god was a dead tomb. Unless one was powerful enough to break it open, one could not enter it. As for the tomb of the northern Lightwing god, it has a feeling of choosing a successor. I wonder how many more god-level experts will appear on Earth in the next 4 years. An old man said slowly, his eyes shining. The others are improving, And so are we. With our strength and the Holy Church, if we can't be invincible for 4 years, then our lives will be in vain. A woman said faintly. Don't worry, everyone. So what if the Dragon King's strength is now? So what if someone has received the inheritance of the God Lord? Don't worry, I'm still here. In these 4 years, we have no fear of anyone or any force. In 4 years, everyone will either submit or die. HM8. Yuan Kuei glanced at the gods around him and snorted with confidence. He was full of disdain and contempt for the gods' worries. Oh! Lord Yuan Kuei's strength has increased. A young god looked at Yuan Kuei in surprise. Gather all the disciples of the Lingxiao treasured palace within these 10 days. This time, we will unite and show our might. Yuan Kuei didn't answer him directly. He simply said one sentence and disappeared in an instant. Haha, there is no need for us to worry over nothing. With our current strength, even if we destroy the Dragon King's forces, we will only lose some. Now, only if all the gods work together can they pose a threat to us. A middle-aged man laughed and disappeared in an instant. They've all improved. Seeing Yuan Kuei and the middle-aged man's confident expression, a young man said in surprise. The other gods fell silent and slowly disappeared one by one. When they arrived, more than a dozen god kingdoms had appeared, and the gods had obtained a large number of resources and treasures. Among them, there was definitely someone whose strength had improved again. The gods of the Lingxiao treasured palace want to marry the gods of the sacred hall. What's going on? Are they going to join forces? Obviously, they are going to join forces. Hiss, if the Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall join forces, no force on earth will be their match. It should be because of the appearance of the Dragon King. Some forces of the Fire God Palace and the Pyramid have been destroyed, forcing the Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall to make some preparation. I heard that the Lingxiao treasured palace has invited all the gods this time. Even some of the forces established by the demigods have also sent invitations. The next day, the matter of the Lingxiao treasured palace inviting all the gods and all the forces to attend the god engagement party of the two forces 10 days later broke out on the internet. While everyone was shocked, they also guessed the intentions of the two forces. Obviously, the marriage between the gods of the two forces was not just for the wedding banquet. Many people could guess that it was the alliance of the two forces. And the gods and forces that had received the invitation couldn't refuse the invitation. Regardless of whether it was the rise of the Dragon King or the establishment of the True Dragon Association, the strength of the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church was still unfathomable. Now that they had joined forces, the gods had to give them some face. 5 days slowly passed, and in the sky above River City, a primordial flame enveloped the entire River City. The fire element let out joyful celebratory sounds. The entire world was enveloped in joy. Boom! An incomparably huge divine kingdom was raised high in the sky over 100,000 meters high. Xiao Ran's face, which was covered in flames, was filled with excitement and excitement. I, Xiao Ran, have finally become a god. His face was filled with excitement as he raised the divine kingdom high above his head. A wisp of divine fire appeared above his head. I can finally step into this era. Xiao Ran clenched his fist tightly. This was the era of the gods. He had finally stepped into this era. Buzz. At this moment, an 8-story pagoda flew toward Xiao Ran from below. He looked at the crimson-red pagoda. Each floor contained a terrifying flame. His eyes revealed a burning expression. Divine weapon. A word flashed across his mind. He looked at the figure below and was filled with gratitude. Thank you, Master. Boom. Xiao Ran stretched out his arm and held the divine weapon. He was extremely excited as he felt the majestic power coming from the divine weapon. It was a divine weapon with 3 wisps of divine fire. With the divine weapon in his hand and the physique of the origin fire, he had the ability to fight against 2 wisps of divine fire. Retrieve. He shouted softly and the divine kingdom entered his body. His figure appeared in front of Wang Xian. Thank you, Master. Xiao Ran knelt on the ground and said excitedly. Get up. Mengxian has prepared some delicious food. Come and eat. Wang Xian smiled and said to him. Brother, Congratulations on lighting the divine fire and becoming a god. Among all the humans on earth, you are the first person to become a god. Liu Mengxin walked over happily and said to Xiao Ran. With master's help, even a pig can become a god. Xiao Ran smiled faintly. He did not have the slightest bit of pride because he became a god. Hihi, with master around, it's also because of your luck and strength, brother. The world is not fair to begin with. Liu Mengxin said with a smile. Teacher, brother, try my desserts. The three of them sat at a table and chatted as they ate. Mengxin, you and Xiao Ran can eat here. Half an hour later, Wang Xian got up and left. He told Liu Mengxin. It's teacher. Liu Mengxin saw Wang Xian leaving and knew what he meant. She nodded slightly. Why, little sister, why do I feel like there's something going on between you and master? Xiao Ran saw his master leaving and his little sister was acting strangely. A puzzled look appeared on her face. Brother, there's something I need to tell you. Liu Mengxin hesitated for a moment and passed the invitation letter to her brother. What? When Xiao Ran saw the contents of the invitation letter, his expression changed drastically. I gave Sister Ling Fei a call a few days ago. I can tell that this marriage was not of her own free will. Brother, do you want to give Sister Ling Fei a call? She still doesn't know that you're still alive. Who knows? Liu Mengxin saw the change in her brother's expression and said worriedly. No need. I'll go and ask Ling Fei personally. I also want to ask Ling Xiao Palace. Xiao Ran clenched his fists tightly and said with a face full of unwillingness. He wanted to ask Consort Ling personally if this was her original intention. He wanted to question the Ling Xiao Palace and why they wanted to kill him. Keek, little Xiao Ran, with your strength, going to the Ling Xiao Palace is simply courting death. When the time comes, call us and we'll bring some people for you. No matter what, you're still the disciple of our Dragon King. Not everyone can bully you. As for women, I don't care what she thinks. Just snatch them over. Keek keek. At this moment, a few figures slowly walked up from the staircase on the top floor of the villa. Chapter 1964. 1964. In 1964, all the gods gathered in the sky. Mo Sho, Bhe, and Ao Chitian stood at the entrance of the stairs. They leaned against the wall and looked at Xiao Ran with a smile. The arrogant and sinister voice came from the mouths of Bhe and Mo Sho. Xiao Ran, who was sitting there, was slightly stunned and immediately stood up. Leaders, thank you, he said excitedly to Mo Sho and the others. No need to thank me. It's just a small matter. I like it the most when it comes to killing and arson. Bhe laughed sinisterly. I, Ao Chitian, am a little like the legendary Monkey King. The Lingxiao Treasure Hall is a little like the Heavenly Court in the legends. Hee. Ao Chitian laughed and said suddenly. Monkey King? Hee. When the Dragon King named you Monkey King, he probably saw that you looked like that monkey. However, although the legendary Monkey King caused a ruckus in the Heavenly Palace, he was eventually suppressed. Bhe looked at Ao Chitian and said with a smile. Suppress me? With just them, the Demon War Department alone can destroy 100,000 of their heavenly troops and heavenly generals. Ao Chitian snorted coldly, and a brutal aura emanated from his body. Haha, then the 100,000 heavenly troops and heavenly generals of the Lingxiao Treasure Hall will be handed over to the Demon War Department. Mo Sho said with a loud laugh. Xiao Ran was slightly stunned when he heard their words. This time, he only borrowed his master's power to question the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and ask Ji Lingfei about the reason. He borrowed his master's power to make the Lingxiao Treasured Palace fear him. Why did he go to the leaders of the Dragon Palace and seem to want to destroy them? 5 days passed in the blink of an eye. During these 5 days, not much happened. The only thing that caught people's attention was that in Jiang City, another subordinate of the Dragon King had lit a divine fire and became a god. This caused all the forces to be shocked again. The last time they destroyed the throne room of the Fire God Palace, the Dragon King had displayed the power of 13 gods. Now that someone in Jiang City had lit a divine fire, he must also be a subordinate of the Dragon King. In total, there were 14 gods. What kind of concept was this? 14 gods were immediately more than the gods of the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church. The two major forces each had only a dozen gods. The power of the Dragon King made countless people extremely fearful. In addition, now that the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church had joined forces, it made those gods who traveled alone extremely wary. This was completely forcing them to join forces. Aohe, let's go. In the villa in Jiang City, Wang Xian said to Aohe and brought the two girls straight to the Lingxiao treasured palace. Daddy, aren't we waiting for Xiao Ran and the rest? Hua looked to the side and said to Wang Xian. No, let's go and take a look first. Wang Xian shook his head and looked at the Lingxiao treasured palace in the sky. The gigantic skyscraping treasured palace was thousands of kilometers long and was emitting an incomparable divine radiance. The entire skyscraping treasured palace brought Earth to a star field that no one on Earth knew about with a majestic force. A single palace could cover such a huge area. It was almost comparable to the divine kingdom of God with 5 or 6 wisps of divine fire. There are so many people. Hua and the others looked around. With their eyesight, they could see over 1 million people flying toward the Lingxiao treasured palace. These were the disciples of the major factions. This time, the marriage between the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church would have at least 10 million people come to congratulate them. This was one of the intentions of the two major factions. South Heaven Gate. Soon, an incomparably huge heaven gate appeared in their sight. The Lingxiao treasured palace was divided into 4 heaven gates: east, south, west, and north. This time, the Lingxiao treasured palace allowed everyone to enter through the south heaven gate. Welcome, Dragon King. Please follow me inside. When Wang Xian and the rest arrived in front of the south heaven gate, a god immediately came forward and extended his hand to signal to him. All right. Wang Xian nodded his head and swept his gaze across the south heaven gate. On both sides of the south heaven gate, which was 4,000 to 5,000 meters wide, 2 rows of heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals stood neatly. Golden armor, a mighty body, and a powerful aura. All of these showed the power of the Lingxiao treasure hall. That's the Dragon King. The Dragon King has arrived. However, it seems that the Dragon King didn't bring too many subordinates. When the Dragon King arrives, the deities of the Lingxiao treasure hall will go over to welcome him. This is the might of the Dragon King. With the current power of the Dragon King, even the Lingxiao treasure hall has to treat him with respect. Around them, some of the young, middle-aged, and old men who were walking towards the palace were filled with fear when they saw Wang Xian and the rest. This is my first time stepping into the Lingxiao treasure hall. Such a stunning palace is floating in the sky. It's really shocking. Look at those heavenly soldiers and generals. They are simply too powerful. Every heavenly soldier and general is at least at the demigod level. An army that is comparable to the heavenly soldiers and generals can only be the holy warrior army of the Holy Church. They are truly an invincible army. As more and more people stepped into the South Heaven Gate, their hearts were filled with awe as they scanned the tens of thousands of heavenly soldiers and generals around the South Heaven Gate. Even though the earth had undergone great changes and many people had obtained treasures in the divine tomb during this period of time to raise their strength to the demigod realm, they could clearly sense their own weakness when they saw these heavenly soldiers and generals. Even the proud sons of heaven were slightly apprehensive in their hearts. This is the foundation of the Lingxiao treasured palace. Although the Dragon King has more than a dozen subordinates of the gods, his foundation is still far inferior. The deeper they went, the more shocked they became. The entire Lingxiao treasured palace was simply too magnificent. Dragon King, please. About 20 kilometers away from the South Heaven Gate, there was an incomparably huge arena in front of them. The surroundings of the arena were already densely packed with people. They were all disciples who had followed the arrival of the Lingxiao treasured palace. 10 days ago, they had all been summoned back to the Lingxiao treasured palace. Millions of disciples stood there neatly. The weakest among them had already reached the insightful emptiness realm. At the very front was a colorful ceremonial stage. The decorations on it were festive and beautiful. There were more than 30 seats above the ceremonial stage. Currently, there were a few gods sitting on the seats. The gods who brought Wang Xian brought them to the right seat below the ceremonial stage and gestured to them. The Dragon King is here. Many gods had already arrived at the seats closest to the stage. Upon seeing Wang Xian's arrival, the gods looked over one by one. There were more than 10 pairs of eyes. There were the true dragons son of heaven and the gods who occupied the divine mountains. Among them, the 3 true dragons son of heaven from the True Dragon Union sat opposite Wang Xian. The seats were divided according to one's strength. Wang Xian scanned his surroundings and smiled faintly. He sat there with Hua Sir and Ao Crab, waiting quietly. Chapter 1965. 1965. Crushing Ling Xiao 1. As time passed, more and more people arrived in the Ling Xiao Palace. The powerhouses and forces from all over the earth had gathered in the Ling Xiao Palace in the millions. This was equivalent to the arrival of all the slightly more powerful people on Earth. Even if the gods of the Ling Xiao Palace haven't arrived yet, nearly 20 gods have already gathered around. The Dragon King has only brought one subordinate here. Almost all the gods on Earth have gathered. Almost all the elites have also arrived. Millions of people stood behind the disciples of the Ling Xiao treasured palace. They looked around and discussed among themselves. All the disciples of the Ling Xiao treasured palace and all the elites on Earth, except for the disciples of the Sacred Hall, had not arrived. Today, almost all the powerhouses of the Ling Xiao treasured palace had gathered. This marriage could be said to be the focus of everyone's attention. And above the Ling Xiao treasured palace, 3 satellites were suspended. These 3 satellites would broadcast the marriage live. This was also a way for the Ling Xiao treasured palace and the Sacred Hall to display their power to everyone on Earth. This marriage had attracted the attention of billions of people on Earth. Everyone was waiting quietly for the arrival of the powerhouses from the Ling Xiao treasured palace and the Holy Church. Wang Xian and the other gods were also sitting there quietly. Time passed slowly. Ao Chitian is a little slow. However, at this moment, Xiao Ran, Ao Jian, Ba Qi, and Mo Sho were standing by the seaside at Jiang City. Their eyes were looking at the ocean. Ba Qi saw the fluctuations in front of them and said faintly, "It's not a big deal. It took me some time to upgrade the 2 subordinates of the Starwood Combat Division." At this moment, figures appeared in front of them. With Ao Chitian as the leader, more than 2,000 figures appeared in front of them. Prime Minister Gui was standing in the middle, Ao Chitian was on the left, and 2 members of the Starwood Combat Division were on the right. Behind them were 2,000 members of the Demon Combat Department. Each of the members of the Demon Combat Department exuded a violent aura. They held a metal club in their hands. They were 5 meters tall, and pitch-black scales covered their entire bodies. On top of the scales, there was a layer of pitch-black needle-like spears, and a pair of fangs were exposed. His long tail was somewhat similar to some of the demonized Chitian Grand Sage in novels. "Prepare to go over." Prime Minister Gui looked at Xiao Ran and said with a smile. "Who, Prime Minister Gui, sorry to trouble all the leaders." Xiao Ran's gaze swept across his master's subordinates. The experts of the Dragon Palace took a deep breath and nodded heavily. "He, it's no trouble. Someone dared to assassinate the disciple of our Dragon King. This is completely disrespectful to our Dragon Palace. Today, let the Ling Xiao treasured palace give us an explanation," Prime Minister Gui said indifferently. He, snatch the woman first. Kill the man. Find the mastermind behind this and send him to hell, Mo Sho said from the side with a dense expression. Xiao Ran looked at Ba Qi and Mo Sho and smiled bitterly. "Thank you, Leader Mo Sho. When the time comes, I'll listen to Xiao Ran's orders for now." Prime Minister Gui took over his words and said to the leaders of the Dragon Palace. "It's Prime Minister Gui. Don't worry, Prime Minister Gui. We know what to do." The leaders of the Dragon Palace nodded. They also knew that this time, it was mainly about Xiao Ran. Moreover, there were some things that he needed to solve himself. "Thank you, Prime Minister Gui. Thank you, leaders. Let's go." Xiao Ran nodded heavily. He moved his hand, and the 8 divine fire pagoda on his palm emitted a powerful divine light. He looked at his sister beside him and nodded. He raised his head and looked at the enormous Lingxiao treasured palace. This enormous palace was once an absolutely invincible existence in his eyes. He had never thought that he would step into this divine palace today and question all the gods in the sky. Whoosh! The group flew toward the Lingxiao treasured palace. The leaders of the Dragon Palace, 9 flood dragons, 2,000 members of the Demon War Department, and 2 members of the Starward War Department. These 2 members of the Starward War Department had been upgraded with the resources of the 7 gods after they had killed the Fire God Palace's 7 gods. After lighting the divine fire, the strength of all the members of the Starward Combat Division, with the help of the Ancestral Tree, was comparable to the Mad Dragon species, which had the strongest attack power in the Dragon Palace. Lighting the divine fire was the most suitable choice for the members of the Starward Combat Division. Now, including Ao Xingmu, the Starward Combat Division had 3 gods, and they all had the strength to fight against 4 wisps of the divine fire god. 22 godly state experts and 2,000 rank 8 demigod demon combat division members. The gods of the Lingxiao treasured palace have arrived. Just as Xiao Ran and the others were flying toward the Lingxiao treasured palace, a voice resounded within the Lingxiao treasured palace. At the center of the Lingxiao treasured palace, 15 figures flew toward the ceremonial stage. Around the 15 figures were 20,000 heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals. In the middle of the 15 figures was a woman in a legendary red dress. She was exceptionally eye-catching. She wore a red festive dress and a phoenix crown on her head. One could vaguely see her delicate face. However, there was a hint of coldness on her body. Greetings, gods. When the gods from the Lingxiao treasured palace arrived, all the disciples immediately half-knelt on the ground and shouted loudly, "Greetings, gods." At the back, when the elites on earth saw the 15 gods flying over, their hearts trembled. They half-knelt on the ground and shouted respectfully. In an instant, over 10 million people in the surroundings knelt there. Only the 20 or so gods near the ceremonial stage sat there indifferently, their gazes sizing up the gods of the Lingxiao treasured palace. At the same time, the 3 satellite live broadcast images were clearly displayed in front of everyone on Earth. 15 gods. Hiss, this is the first time the Lingxiao treasured palace has displayed all the gods. As expected of one of the top forces, a total of 15 gods, a few more than the Dragon King's forces. I wonder if the Lingxiao treasured palace has any other hidden strength. 100,000 heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals, and more than a dozen gods. As expected of the Lingxiao treasured palace, the gods that descended. Everyone watching the live broadcast was shocked when they saw this scene. Stand up. In the center of the gods, Yuan Kuei's gaze swept across everyone in front of him as he said indifferently, "Yes." Everyone responded loudly and looked at the gods in awe. "Ha ha ha, we're not late, are we?" At this moment, a carefree voice sounded out. In the west, light covered a radius of dozens of kilometers. A holy warrior with wings accompanied them on both sides. In the middle, more than a dozen gods on radiant Pegasus flew over. The gods of the Holy Church had arrived. Just in time, haha. Yuan Kuei looked over and revealed a smile. Chapter 1966. 1966. In 1966, he crushed Ling Xiao too. Those are the gods of the Holy Church. 14 gods, one less than the Ling Xiao Palace, but this number is terrifying enough. The 40,000 to 50,000 winged ones around are the Holy Warrior Army. The strength of the Holy Warrior Army is no weaker than that of the Dragon Palace. The arrival of the powerhouses of the Holy Church made everyone reveal Ling Rant's expression. There are 15 gods from the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and 14 gods from the Sacred Hall. Together, there are at least 29 gods. And this is only on the surface. Perhaps they are hiding some of their strength. When the eldest young master of the celestial race, who had lit up the divine fire, saw this scene, his face was filled with a solemn expression. He muttered, and his eyes flickered with a luster. When the surrounding gods saw this scene, their expressions turned ugly. Even though they were once fallen gods who had ignited 4 or 5 wisps of divine fire in the past, or even 7 or 8 wisps of divine fire in the past, this was still the past. If they wanted to recover their peak strength, they would need a large amount of resources. Before they recovered, they were filled with fear when facing 30 or so god-level experts. Even though these gods didn't light up much divine fire, they still didn't need much effort to kill them. Brother Luke Owen, this way please. Yuan Kuei looked at everyone from the Holy Church and smiled as he gestured to the old man riding the Pegasus in the middle. All right. Luke Owen nodded indifferently and flew towards the seats on the stage. A group of gods followed him and sat on the seats one by one. Behind him, 50,000 holy warriors were floating at the back. They spread their 3-meter-wide wings and emitted a strong white glow. They were as holy as the angels in the legends. This must be the Dragon King. He is really young and promising. He is a legend. Luke Owen stood in front of the 2 seats in the middle of the front row. His gaze swept across all the gods below. Finally, his gaze landed on Wang Xian as he said faintly, "Thank you for your praise." Wang Xian replied with a smile when he saw the old man from the Holy Church talking to him. Everyone in the surroundings saw this scene and turned their attention to the Dragon King and the old man from the Holy Church. The Divine Sea Palace and the Fire God Palace are not small forces. If the Dragon King wishes to obtain protection, he can join our Holy Church. Suddenly, Luke Owen said to Wang Xian lightly, "Oh." Wang Xian raised his eyebrows as his eyes sparkled. Luke Owen didn't say much. He looked at a god who looked like a young man and gestured to the young man. The 2 of them flew straight to the stage. Yuan Kuei saw them walking to the center and looked at concubine Ji Ling who was beside him. "Junior sister, let's go." As he spoke, he flew straight to the center. Concubine Ji followed behind expressionlessly and landed on the stage. She had a beautiful figure and a holy face. She was a goddess worthy of her name. Brown Warren, who was standing beside Luke Owen, looked at concubine Ji with a burning gaze. "My name is Luke Owen. Today, the son of the god of the Holy Church, God Brown Warren, will marry the goddess of the Lingxiao Palace. At the same time, apart from this joyous event, we also have something to announce. Our Holy Church will be closer to the Lingxiao Palace because of the marriage between Brown Warren and goddess Ji Ling. From now on, the Lingxiao Palace will form an alliance with the Holy Church. The light of the Holy Church will cover all of you." Luke Owen took 2 steps forward and slowly spread his arms, announcing to everyone, "The light of the Holy Church will cover all of you." Behind them, all the gods of the Holy Church spread out their arms at the same time, and an incomparably majestic power of light covered the area ahead. Wang, Wang. A gentle divine light of light enveloped everyone. The area behind them was bathed in the power of light, and they instantly felt their spirits shake. They couldn't help but feel a trace of piety in their hearts. Some insightful void tear cultivators could even sense that some of the injuries in their bodies had recovered. Everyone was slightly shocked and filled with reverence. At the front, the gods saw this scene, and their hearts trembled slightly. The light of the sacred hall was going to envelop everyone. What did this mean? This meant that the light of the sacred hall was going to envelop them, and everyone was going to be covered by the sacred hall. Ji Lingfei saw this scene, and a trace of disdain flashed in her eyes. The soaring heavens treasured palace will form an alliance with the Holy Church. We will rise above the clouds and all living beings. The soaring heavens treasured palace's God Ascension Board will be the true God Ascension Board. All the gods will be on it. Yuan Kuei looked at Luke Owen and the corners of his mouth curled up. He glanced at everyone in front of him and his aura trembled slightly. Boom! A terrifying pressure shot into the clouds and the sky changed. The God Ascension Board was shining brightly. Names appeared on the God Ascension Board. First place, Dragon King Immortal. Second place, Demonic Dragon Son of Heaven. Third place, True Dragon Son of Heaven. Fourth place. Names appeared on the God Ascension Board. The real God Ascension Board and the name of Dragon King Immortal appeared at the first place. Clang, clang, clang. At this moment, a cold voice rang out from the surroundings. The 100,000 heavenly soldiers and generals shook the weapons in their hands gently. The cold voice rang out in everyone's mind. It made one's blood boil. God Ascension List. At the back, everyone looked at the eye-catching God Ascension List with shock in their eyes. God Ascension Roll, the light of the sacred hall? All the gods looked at this scene and narrowed their eyes, their expressions somewhat ugly. As expected, everything was as they had expected. No, it was even more overbearing than they had expected. What does the sacred hall and the Lingxiao treasured palace mean? The light of the sacred hall, the gods on the god ascension roll, are they displaying their might? They are intimidating all the gods. Whether it's the light of the sacred hall or the god ascension list, they are showing off their sovereignty and power. There are nearly 30 immortal gods. The Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall have the right to intimidate everyone. Even the Dragon King has to bow his head in front of this force. In front of the satellite live broadcast network, everyone saw this scene and began to discuss and make guesses. Basically, it was as most people expected. This marriage was actually an alliance that would shock the world. However, what surprised them was that the might displayed by the Holy Church and the Lingxiao treasured palace was a little overbearing. In the legends, those who enter the God Ascension role would be restricted. The Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church have joined forces. It seems that they want to intimidate and even suppress all the gods. Wang Xian looked at his first place on the god ceiling roll and the corner of his mouth curled up slightly. The gods around him had a slightly sullen look on their faces. Some of them glanced at each other and remained silent. They were all on their own. If they were to join forces to fight against the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Saint Hall, it was obviously impossible.